Hi everyone, please subscribe to my channel. Blood Immortal. See playlist for other chapters and novels. Join now our Telegram channel now and enjoy exclusive early access. t.me/blood_immortal_official. I do not translate the novels. Credits goes to original translator and author of the novel. I only make it as an audiobook so it would be easier to just listen while doing other things. Credits goes to the author of the novel. I convert stories to audiobook for mental health, for multitasking purpose, for accessibility and time saving. Listening to audiobook is also beneficial for people who have disability. It improves our listening skills and improve our English comprehension, vocabulary and other things. So, thank you for listening. Thank you and thank you very much for your support. Chapter 21 The Skeleton with Wisdom. At night, the moon rises, and in this silent dead zone, the moonlight is so pale, it is as scary as the light of death. At the same time, Xiao Chen sensed a hint of danger. Without any delay, he quickly rushed out of the swamp. Faintly hidden, a faint black mist floated from the mud and puddles, and began to linger in this swamp forest. Xiao Chen was startled. He had already guessed that this was miasma, and it was probably the most poisonous corpse miasma in the legend. Standing on the periphery of this dead zone, Xiao Chen began to think, seeing the ribbon-shaped clouds floating inside, could it be possible to use this place? Led Zhao Liner and the brown-haired man here. Click, the sound of knuckle activity is heard again. Click click, white shadows swayed in the dark swamp forest, and a human skeleton stood up. Xiao Chen was extremely surprised, standing on the edge to hide his figure, paying attention to the movable skeleton. The skeleton's movements were mechanically stiff at the beginning, but with the crackling sound of the joints, the rickety body became much lighter after standing upright. It walked back and forth in the swamp, as if looking for something. Xiao Chen held his breath and continued to wait and see quietly. The snow-white skull, under the pale moonlight, looks eerie and terrifying, especially when it can move freely. It looks even more frightening. When it turned around and faced Xiao Chen's direction, Xiao Chen saw a faint light flickering in the skeleton's skull, shining through the sunken eye sockets, which was extremely strange and terrifying. Crack, click, the sound of joints turning sounded in the other two directions, and two more skeletons stood up in the forest. They walked through the muddy puddles and merged with the first skeleton. There is also a faint light flickering in their skulls, and they seem to be able to communicate with each other. Every time they look at each other, the faint light in their eye sockets will continue to flicker. Xiao Chen can't understand all this. Is it a ghost? He doesn't feel like it. In the next hour, no similar skeletons appeared. During this process, Xiao Chen waited and watched an ambush all the time, and found that 3 skeletons were constantly turning over the bones in the swamp, as if they were looking for something. The skeletons of brutal beasts that are several meters long and weigh nearly 1,000 catties can be easily opened by them. One can imagine how powerful they are. Xiao Chen didn't understand what they were doing until a skeleton found a bright spar among the bones. Holding the spar, the skeleton seemed to be very excited. Its jaw moved up and down, making a click, click, click sound, with a gloomy sense of humor, attracting the other 2 skeletons to run over. The 3 skeletons stood together under the pale moonlight, looking very awe-inspiring and terrifying. Crackling, the light blue spar was broken apart by the skeleton and divided into 3 petals of similar size. The 3 skeletons each held 1 petal and stuffed it into the cranial cavity from the eye socket. Bright rays of light emanated from their eyes, and light blue brilliance flowed from their heads to their lower bodies like a stream of water. The blue brilliance set off the snow-white skeletons into a deep blue, and the soft light quickly wrapped the 3 skeletons inside. After a long time, the blue brilliance gradually receded, and the white bones seemed to be more crystal clear than before. Xiao Chen was surprised that the skeleton could absorb the energy of the spar. Is this a different kind of evolution? Just don't know how they came about in the first place. Under the pale moonlight, corpses fluttered in the swamp, and 3 skeletons walked freely. All this is so strange. Suddenly, a skeleton who walked to the edge of the swamp seemed to have discovered something, and walked towards the giant tree where Xiao Chen was hiding in doubt. Xiao Chen's heart moved, and he didn't just evacuate, but turned out from behind the big tree, facing the skeleton. The skeleton seemed very confused. He looked back at the 2 companions behind him, and then at Xiao Chen. The faint light flickering in his eye sockets flickered on and off, as if he was thinking about something. The other 2 skeletons also came over, and they also looked at Xiao Chen with some confusion, as if they felt that the angry guy in front of them was different. Xiao Chen wanted to observe them at a close distance, and wanted to see what kind of strangeness they had, but he found nothing special except that there was a mysterious force in the skull that provided the energy for the entire skeleton to move. Suddenly he had an idea, took out a brown spar obtained from a beast carcass, and held it in his palm. In the eye sockets of the 3 skeletons, there was an indeterminate light, and at the same time they stretched out their bone claws towards the spar. Xiao Chen took a step back, and the 3 skeletons followed and stepped out of the swamp. Xiao Chen didn't feel the killing intent on the skeleton, so Xiao Chen handed them the spar. The brown spar was easily broken by them, divided into 3 pieces, and then stuffed into his eye socket. Brown light flickered, and the light extended from their skulls to their lower bodies. A burst of crackling, sounded from their joints. Looking closely, it was found that the brilliance flowed on the skeleton, and the 3 skeletons were as bright as jade. As the energy of the spar was completely absorbed, this abnormality disappeared, but their skeletons seemed to have a little more luster than before. A skeleton stretched out its bone claws, and struck towards the big tree next to it. There was a soft poof, and the snow-white bone claws penetrated deeply into the tree trunk, not even the small half of the arm bone. An ordinary blow has such power, it can be seen how terrifying the skeleton is. Xiao Chen was very surprised, the power of the skeleton was much stronger than he imagined. The eyes of the 3 skeletons flashed with light, standing in front of Xiao Chen and watching him quietly. After a long time, their jaws opened and closed a few times, making a click, click, click sound, as if they were talking about something, and then they walked towards the depths of the swamp together and slowly disappeared into the dark forest. Powerful and intelligent skeletons. For all of this, Xiao Chen felt a little unbelievable. He walked around the death swamp for more than half an hour and found that it could be more than 10 square kilometers in size. At midnight, the miasma of corpses in the swamp was the most intense, and the thick black mist even blocked the pale moonlight. It wasn't until the middle of the night that the corpse miasma gradually receded and became thinner and thinner. In the middle of the night, Xiao Chen suddenly heard a violent crash in the outskirts of the swamp of death. It seemed that someone was fighting in the swamp. He ran around the swamp, rushing towards the direction where the sound came from, and after a while, he saw a surprising picture. Chapter 22 Dead Things. 3 skeletons and 5 zombies were fighting fiercely in the forest. The 3 skeletons moved to the extreme like 3 white lights, leaving afterimages around the 5 zombies, and the white bone claws hit them from time to time, making bang bang sounds. Xiao Chen was extremely surprised, all this made him feel unbelievable. Although the zombies are not as flexible as the skeletons, they are particularly powerful in fighting. The white bone claws of the 3 skeletons, which can pierce through giant trees, can hardly hurt them. Only when they attack their eyes, the 5 zombies will panic and dodge. The terrible swamp, the duel between the dead and the dead. After watching for half a quarter of an hour, Xiao Chen found that the 3 skeletons were gradually losing the wind. If they were one-on-one, they were stronger than zombies, but now they are not as strong as the opponent in numbers, and they are obviously invincible in 3-on-5. As dawn approached, the corpse miasma in the swamp became thinner and thinner, almost completely disappearing. Xiao Chen thought for a while, held his breath and walked into the swamp, then rushed towards a zombie like lightning, his palms glowed faintly, crystal clear like jade, and swung forward vigorously. Boom! A zombie was knocked back a few steps, but it was not cracked. Xiao Chen felt as if he had been hit on the god iron. Both palms were aching, but the zombie was unscathed. It really is a powerful dead thing. Looking at it from such a close distance, Xiao Chen could clearly see the appearance of the zombies. The 5 zombies were tall and tall, with hideous faces, yellow hair and blue eyes, and the clothes on their bodies had long since rotted away. The attacked zombie mechanically waved its corpse arm, and rushed towards Xiao Chen. Although the movement was stiff, the speed was not very slow. Xiao Chen is as fast as a fire, specializing in the eyes of zombies, making this dead creature panic and shield. Due to Xiao Chen's joining, the pressure on the 3 skeletons was greatly reduced, and soon they gained the upper hand. Skeletons' ability to resist attacks is also strong. Their bones are as hard as iron, not inferior to zombies. In addition, they are faster than the opponent, and their advantages are becoming more and more obvious. The more Xiao Chen fought, the more frightened he became. If it wasn't for his cultivation base already in the room, he would definitely die when he encountered such a dead thing. Although he was injured and unable to exert his strength in his heyday, he was really surprised that he couldn't finish the battle after half a quarter of an hour of fighting like this. In the end, when he hit the 18th palm at the same position between the zombie's chest and abdomen, he made the tall dead thing fall into the swamp like a mountain of gold and a pillar of jade, and its whole body was torn apart. When Xiao Chen entangled a zombie again, the 3 skeletons had already taken the overwhelming advantage. They showed a strength that made Xiao Chen feel a little scary. The 3 white lights left after images, and the 6 bone claws couldn't leave the zombie's chest and eyes. PFF'd. A bone claw was inserted into the chest of a zombie. Click. A bone claw broke the neck of a zombie. ... Because of Xiao Chen's joining, the 5 zombies were defeated. Half an hour later, the battle was completely over. Xiao Chen solved 2 zombies, while 3 skeletons tore 3 apart. The scene was a bit cold-blooded and terrifying, but this is their law of survival. At this time, it was almost dawn, and the corpse miasma had almost completely disappeared. The 3 skeletons stood in front of Xiao Chen, their jaws opened and closed a few times, and then walked silently in front of the 5 zombies. They actually found 5 gloomy crystals from the shattered corpses. The 5 crystals are all pale green, exuding a gloomy aura, and the green light is a bit scary, especially against the backdrop of snow-white bone claws. It is even more cold and terrifying. However, the energy fluctuations it emits are very violent, stronger than the dozen or so crystals held by Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen looked at them quietly, but he didn't expect them to send 2 bisons and spar in front of him, and motioned him to accept them. Interesting skeleton, he waved his hand, rejecting their offer. The light in the eye sockets of the 3 skeletons flickered. They stared at him silently for a moment, took back the 2 crystals, and then divided the 5 crystals into 3 parts, each of which was stuffed into the eye sockets to absorb pure energy. The pale blue light, like a mist of light, shrouded the bodies of the 3 skeletons, making their joints make a crackling sound, and the brilliance continued to flow, as if strengthening their bones. When the green light disappeared, the skeletons of the 3 skeletons became much smoother, and even had a faint luster. At this time, it was already dawn, and the sky was gradually brightening. Xiao Chen wanted to see what kind of secrets were hidden in this mysterious swamp, so he walked towards the depths of the forest. At the beginning, the 3 skeletons silently followed behind him, but when they approached the central area of the swamp, they suddenly grabbed Xiao Chen's arm, and Xiao Chen was startled by the cold bone claws. The 3 skeletons were not hostile, and seemed a little anxious. They pointed to the extremely dark area ahead, and shook their bone claws vigorously, signaling him not to move forward. Xiao Chen felt their panic, and there seemed to be a king of dead things ahead. He didn't insist anymore, and retreated along the original road, but he didn't leave the swamp. The sky had already brightened, and a new day had begun. He felt that this was a good place to defend, and decided to temporarily live in this bad place. Xiao Chen believes that the clues left by him are enough for those who want to surround and suppress him to search for more than half a day, and many people may become food for fierce beasts. If the opponent moves quickly, they may be able to find this place when it gets dark, and the swamp may come in handy by then. In the early morning, there are waves of waves on the beach, and the morning glow sprinkles countless pieces of gold in the sea. The huge body of the 8-armed evil dragon churned up waves in the sea. Looking at the terrifying ancient beast, the brown-haired man Ji Luo frowned. Ships coming from north to south will probably appear in this area. If a helping hand lands on this beach, they may encounter disaster. Although a huge bamboo pole has been erected on top of a tall coconut tree, and a huge animal skin dyed red by animal blood is hung on it, but it is not known whether such a striking flag can be spotted in time by the forthcoming helping hand when waving the semaphore. The sun has risen high, and the 8-armed dragon has swam far away, seemingly disappearing into the sea, while at the same time, 2 large ships are approaching the island. Chapter 23 The 3 Kings of the Underworld. Ji Luo was overjoyed. The flags on the 2 ships belonged to their family, and they happened to avoid the beast at this time. However, his joy didn't last long. There was a huge roar in the depths of the sea, and the shaking sea water seemed to boil. A waterway was separated above the sea. Huge white waves rolled to both sides, and a huge monster came riding the wind and waves. The 2 big boats obviously noticed that something was wrong, so they speeded up and rushed towards the beach. However, although the ancient ferocious beasts were far away, their speed was too fast. When the 2 big ships were more than 100 meters away from the beach, they had already rushed forward. Boom! The huge body collided with the 2 big ships in an instant. The sharp horn, the ferocious giant, the sharp saber teeth, and the body shone with silver light. It cut off the 2 big ships like a giant. Everyone is terrified. Ji Luo's face was extremely livid. The 8-armed dragon stirred up huge waves, and the 2 large ships were quickly smashed. More than 100 people were in the ocean, and the Ji Luo family's fighting power in plotting the island was about to be destroyed. However, the ancient evil dragon seemed to have no regard for the tiny creatures like ants. After crushing the 2 large ships, they did not kill the people in the sea, but kept churning up huge waves. Many people sank into the bottom of the sea forever following the huge vortex, but there were still 40 or 50 people who managed to escape to the seaside. In the end, 43 people ran to the beach, and more people were completely buried in the sea, and the losses were heavy. Those who can survive are considered the best among them. Originally, Ji Luo was already desperate, but after seeing less than half of the people survived, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. After resting for enough time to let these people recover, Ji Luo and Zhao Lin'er began to encircle and suppress Xiao Chen. At first, as Xiao Chen expected, these people followed the clues left by him. When these people chased into a dark and damp chaotic rocky hill, a silver giant centipede with a thickness of a bowl and a length of 3 to 4 meters rushed out like lightning, and instantly tore the 2 people in the front, and 3 people were corroded into bones by the poison in an instant. The sword slashed on the body of the giant silver centipede, splashing countless sparks, which couldn't hurt at all. Even the light blade attack scroll, unfolded by Ji Luo, couldn't hurt at all. In the end, when a terrifying scroll with dancing flames was unrolled, the giant silver centipede flinched, and everyone was able to escape. At this point, Zhao Lin'er and Ji Luo knew they had been duped, and began to calculate Xiao Chen's possible escape route carefully. The scorching sun is scorching, but the endless primitive old forest is full of murderous aura. At this moment, in the swamp of death, it is still dark, the sun has gone from the giant log, and the gloomy air is lingering. When Xiao Chen woke up on an ancient tree, he was really startled. 3 skeletons hung upside down in front of him like bats. A person who wakes up from sleep, the moment he opens his eyes and sees 3 sets of bones hanging upside down, what reaction will he have? Fortunately, he woke up instantly and did not overreact. The souls of the 3 skeletons were deeply inserted into the tree trunk. After he woke up, the eye sockets of the skeletons also shone with light, as if they were also resting just now. Click, click, the sound of joints turning. The 3 skeletons landed on the tree trunk, constantly moving their joints. Xiao Chen had an unspeakable feeling that his kind in the distance wanted to kill him, but the 3 skeletons nearby lived in harmony with him. This is really absurd. He wanted to name the 3 skeletons, and unconsciously thought of the 10 heavenly sons of the underworld. Your name is King Qin Guang. Your name is King Yama. You are the king of reincarnation. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation are 3 of the 10 heavenly sons of the underworld, but now they are the names of the 3 skeletons. This is Xiao Chen's intention, maybe he is expecting something. At noon, the sun was scorching, Xiao Chen walked out of the swamp, but the 3 skeletons were unwilling to leave this place of death that was extremely dark. However, under Xiao Chen's signal, they still followed. The blazing sun was blocked by the tall trees, only some areas where the trees were sparse, the sun occasionally fell, and the 3 skeletons hated the sun so much that they always walked in the shadows, which seemed to be their nature. They seemed to seldom leave the swamp, facing everything outside. The 3 skeletons are always very curious. When Xiao Chen rushed towards a giant leopard more than 5 meters long, the 3 skeletons rushed forward without hesitation, and 6 indestructible bone claws fiercely inserted into the giant leopard's head, killing it on the spot. Xiao Chen was also shocked by the strength of the fighting power. Ding! A crystal-clear yellow spar was dug out from the giant leopard's corpse by Xiao Chen, and there was a trembling sound when he flicked it with his fingers. The eye sockets of the 3 skeletons suddenly glowed. Xiao Chen smiled and handed the spar to them. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation became interested in the outside world for the first time. Of course, this was due to the temptation of crystals. Under the leadership of Xiao Chen, they haunted the dense forest around the death swamp, looking for the footprints of the beasts that could be dealt with. However, crystal stones are not so easy to obtain, and only 4 or 5 of them were hunted in half a day. Xiao Chen thoroughly observed the surrounding area and prepared to use it to deal with powerful enemies. After returning to the swamp, Xiao Chen practiced quietly, while the 3 skeletons were busy absorbing the energy of the spar. Before the red sun fell to the west, Zhao Lin'er and Ji Luo finally found this place, faster than Xiao Chen imagined. Ji Luo, the brown-haired man, had dark eyes and lost 5 good players when dealing with the giant silver centipede. Although Xiao Chen's plan was seen through in time, due to the large number of people, some ferocious beasts were inevitably alarmed along the way, and 8 more people were lost. Now, including him and Zhao Lin'er, there are only 32 people left. Xiao Chen opened his eyes in the swamp. He felt murderous, someone was approaching here. Seeing that Xiao Chen seemed to be preparing for battle, 3 skeletons surrounded him. Their spiritual senses were also very keen, and they had already sensed that someone was surrounding them. Xiao Chen didn't want to have a head-on confrontation with the opponent. After all, his body had not recovered from his injuries, so he had to delay the time until sunset. When the miasma of corpses would rise up, it would cause a devastating blow to the opponent. He signaled the 3 skeletons to hide. The performance of the 3 skeletons was beyond Xiao Chen's expectation. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Samsara all lay on their backs in the swamp, and there were many skeletons scattered around them. Xiao Chen was in a daze for a while. The 3 guys were much smarter than he imagined, and he even felt a hint of sinister taste. Chapter 24. The performance of the 3 skeletons was beyond Xiao Chen's expectation. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Samsara all lay on their backs in the swamp, and there were many skeletons scattered around them. Xiao Chen was in a daze for a while. The 3 guys were much smarter than he imagined, and he even felt a hint of sinister taste. Outside the swamp, Zhao Liner's skin was like snow, her body was graceful, and she was unsurpassed in beauty. She had icy muscles and bones, and was as fresh as flowers and trees piled up with snow. Ji Yuluo, the brown-haired man, waved his hand silently, and dozens of people behind him spread out quickly, lurking towards the swamp, followed by him and Zhao Liner. The gloomy swamp made these infiltrators startled, and a gloomy atmosphere pervaded the forest, making them aware that this place seemed not a good place. Bai Sensen's skeleton can be seen everywhere, a veritable place of death. 30 masters had spread to the depths of the swamp. Ji Yuluo had a sneer on his lips. All signs showed that Xiao Chen was in the swamp. Killing the opponent was at this very moment. The setting sun was blood red, and a bad feeling suddenly came to Ji Yuluo's heart. He felt danger, but he couldn't detect the source. Suddenly, white light exploded. A skeleton under his feet jumped up high, and a sinister white bone claw went straight to his chest and abdomen. This change is really unexpected. An enemy without any life fluctuations is lying at his feet. It is impossible to guard against. Ji Yuluo waved his fists hastily, barely blocking a pair of bone claws. He wanted to move his feet to respond, but was surprised to find that his feet were tightly locked by a skeleton. He rushed to meet the skeleton in front of him in a panic, but there was a sharp pain from his back, and a white bone claw was inserted deeply into it. There is a skeleton behind. Aha! Hey! From the sudden attack by King Qin Guang, King Yan Luo, and King Reincarnation to Ji Yuluo's heart-piercing screams, it was only an instant. Zhao Liner, the peerless royal goddess, paled after seeing this scene. She had never seen a skeleton kill someone before, but she was not an ordinary person after all, so she rushed up quickly holding a long sword. Undead creature. It is an undead creature that obtains immortality in an alternative way. People in the distance shouted. Hurry up and protect the adults. ... There was chaos in the swamp, and all the scattered masters rushed here quickly. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Samsara knew the danger was approaching, so they flew back without hesitation, but they did not forget to stab Ji Yuluo again, and there were 4 blood holes between Ji Yuluo's chest and abdomen, and the blood flowed out, and the pungent smell of blood permeated the air. Zhao Liner supported Ji Yuluo, who was about to fall in a pool of blood, and 7 or 8 masters immediately surrounded him, while the others roared and killed the 3 skeletons. Xiao Chen, who was hiding on the giant tree, was extremely surprised. In his perception, the brown-haired man is a very terrifying opponent. However, the 3 skeletons gave him an unexpected surprise. The 3 kings succeeded in a sneaky attack and brought down the brown-haired man neatly. This is really a huge victory beyond imagination. Without any delay, Xiao Chen rushed down the giant tree, stomping hard with both feet, and there were a few crisp clicks, clicks. The 2 people who rushed past had their sternums sunken deeply, bleeding from their mouths, and their bodies fell to the ground. Xiao Chen left a few afterimages in the swamp, quickly appeared among the panicked crowd, and began to ruthlessly kill. The 3 skeletons also showed strong combat power at this time. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation, they were so fast, they shuttled through the crowd like 3 white lights, and 3 or 4 people had already been pierced through the chest by them, and the white bone claw really killed them with one blow. After experiencing a chaos, this group of people quickly and effectively organized a counterattack. Bright flame, burn all evil. A brown-haired man chanted quickly, then shook his hands and unfolded a picture scroll, throwing it at Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons. Endless fire appeared in the air, burning the mid-air red like a meteor shower, covering Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons. Xiao Chen shifted his shape continuously and avoided the terrible flame in a short time. The big tree beside him was burned to ashes in an instant. Terrible flame, as if it could really burn everything. The 3 skeletons fled in embarrassment. They were very jealous of this kind of flame, and their speed increased to the limit, leaving streaks of white light in the swamp, but they were still covered by the fire for a short moment. Xiao Chen's heart sank. However, the performance of the three kings exceeded his expectations. Although their bones were somewhat blackened, they were not burned by the holy fire. They came out perfectly. If you look closely, you can find a layer of faint brilliance, retreating from their bodies into the skulls, and a wave of pure energy has protected them just now. Xiao Chen quickly got together with the three skeletons, and confronted Zhao Liner's side. Just now, they took advantage of the chaos and killed 8 of them in one go, which was not a small victory. There was a short period of calm, and neither side took the initiative to attack. The magnificent Imperial Maiden, exuding endless murderous aura at this moment, encountered an ambush when she had the upper hand. As a result, she suffered such a heavy loss, which made her feel extremely aggrieved. The appearance of the 3 undead creatures was beyond her expectation, making it difficult for her to act rashly for a while. Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons also remained unmoved. After all, the other party had a large number of people, and the picture scroll in the other party's hands made them somewhat taboo. At this time, a painful groan broke the short silence. Ji Yu Luo, who had been pierced with 4 blood holes between his chest and abdomen, miraculously woke up, but the blood seeped out of the terribly blocked wound again, and the attendants were anxious to help him tie him up again. Ji Yu Luo stopped them. He leaned in the arms of an attendant, took out a scroll from the sleeve of his robe, and chanted with difficulty, "The light of life, shine on me forever." The scroll unfolded into a picture scroll in an instant, an incomparably dazzling light burst out, the breath of life spread out in an instant, and Ji Yu Luo was shrouded in endless holy light. People on Ji Yu Luo's side cheered, and everyone was very excited because they knew that Ji Yu Luo's life was safe. When they were emotionally excited, Xiao Chen led 3 skeletons to attack suddenly. When the strong life fluctuation appeared, Xiao Chen guessed that Ji Yu Luo was saving himself, and he must not give the other party a chance. King Qin Guang, King Yan Luo, and King Reincarnation are really powerful. The 3 skeletons teamed up to entangle Zhao Liner for a short time, creating an excellent opportunity for Xiao Chen. His body shrouded in hazy brilliance rushed into the crowd, trying his best to kill Ji Yu Luo who was recovering. The nearby masters desperately protected each other to resist Xiao Chen's surprise attack, and the brief confrontation was cruel and cold-blooded. The palms of Xiao Chen's palms shone with divine light, shattering 7 or 8 long swords, and slashed out a series of light blades, cutting open several people's abdomens, and blood continued to splatter. During this process, a strange thing happened. Under the radiant light of life, all the masters who were seriously injured by Xiao Chen were healing quickly, and none of them were in danger of dying. And Xiao Chen was also covered by the divine radiance. At this moment his injured body was recovering rapidly. Chapter 25 Blood Flowers Blooming. Not long ago, he was seriously injured by Wang Zifeng before he died. The serious injury has been bothering him all the time. He never thought that at this moment, that bright light of life would change everything. Although the injured body has almost recovered, but after all, the opponent has a large number of people, and Xiao Chen was stopped a few meters away from Ji Yu Luo. Without the slightest hesitation, he slashed the long sword he had snatched at the divinely shining scroll. The blazing sword light shattered the scroll in an instant, and the light of life faded away. At the same time, the long sword came out of his hand, pointing directly at Ji Yu Luo's heart. At this moment, Ji Yu Luo started to move, slashing a light curtain with both hands and shattering the long sword. He jumped up from the arms of his attendants. Xiao Chen retreated quickly, rushing out of the opponent's camp, and the 3 skeletons also retreated, and the 2 sides confronted each other again. In the first confrontation in the swamp, Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons can be said to have won it all. Not only did Ji Yu Luo suffer heavy injuries, but also lost 8 masters. Most importantly, Xiao Chen has almost completely recovered with the light of life. Ji Yu Luo's face was extremely livid, and he stared at Xiao Chen with sinister eyes. He was as cold as a poisonous snake. He was so angry and ashamed that he almost died here just now. It has to be said that the light of life can be called divine light. Ji Yu Luo was pierced with 4 blood holes in his chest and abdomen. It was a mortal situation, but under the nourishment of that holy radiance, the 4 terrifying wounds healed. Although he was a little weak due to excessive blood loss, his body was basically fine. "Brother Ji Yu Luo, are you all right?" Zhao Liner, the royal goddess, asked. "It's all right." More than 20 masters guarded Ji Yu Luo's side, for fear of another accident. "Kill." Ji Yu Luo waved his hand, without too many words. Any words are superfluous now, and the only way to determine life and death is by combat power. Some people stayed by Ji Yu Luo's side, while the rest of the masters rushed forward quickly. Xiao Chen and the three skeletons attacked the enemy, and the tragic fight began immediately. Ji Yuluo ordered the people around him to attack, and he himself rushed towards Xiao Chen. He wanted to be ashamed. Zhao Liner rushed up afterward. Xiao Chen was her target in the first place. Xiao Chen and the three skeletons were besieged in the center. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Samsara tried their best to help Xiao Chen resist Ji Yuluo and buy him time to kill those masters. The bloody fight was extremely cruel. Now all words are pale, and strength is the last word. Xiao Chen, who was no longer troubled by injuries, no longer had any scruples in his shots, and his profound kung fu was running to the extreme, launching a ruthless killing. Killing the enemy's vital force was the top priority at the moment. Although Zhao Liner's cultivation was not far from his, Xiao Chen avoided her intentionally and kept shuttling among the 20 or so masters, attacking ruthlessly and cruelly. His palm was as sharp as a magic knife, emitting bursts of strange rays of light. He slashed down from the top of a man's head and split it in half. Red blood, white brain, and bright liver flowed all over the ground. The blood was extremely brutal. In this moment of life and death, no kindness can be tolerated, either you die or I die. Puff, Xiao Chen jumped up, pierced a person with one foot, and kicked through the opponent's chest and abdomen. He led the dead body to sweep out, not only cracked the body, but also forced Zhao Liner, who was chasing again, to retreat. This was a real battle of life and death. Xiao Chen was covered in blood. After beheading several opponents, he did not relax because the opponents were stronger than him and the three skeletons. Ji Yuluo's gaze was as cold as a poisonous snake, but he was temporarily entangled by three skeletons, and he was temporarily unable to escape to deal with Xiao Chen. For these three undead creatures, he felt extremely resentful. If they hadn't attacked them secretly, how could he have almost died? It was a waste of one of the most precious life scrolls. Dark blue ice, seal darkness and evil. Ji Yuluo shouted suddenly, a picture scroll unfolded quickly, a water blue light curtain spread instantly, and then a strong energy fluctuation erupted, a giant blue bird pounced on the three skeletons, and at the same time, endless blue light flooded the sky and covered the three skeletons. The energized giant blue bird stretched 5 meters, but was crushed by three skeletons with powerful combat power, but after the endless blue light descended, 3 ice sculptures appeared in the field immediately. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation were frozen. Ji Yuluo sneered, and then rushed towards Xiao Chen without looking back. A picture scroll spread out quickly, and the khaki yellow light shone in the swamp. A huge khaki yellow lizard was more than 8 meters long, and rushed towards Xiao Chen ferociously, creating a storm of energy at the same time. Feeling that something was wrong, Xiao Chen hacked and killed a master who blocked the way, and his body kept changing directions in the forest, but the huge lizard seemed to have a spirit, and it chased after him with endless yellow light. 4 or 5 towering giant trees were crushed by the energized lizards, sawdust flying all over the sky, broken branches and fallen leaves were flying everywhere, and the yellow light was unstoppable. When the 10th giant tree was destroyed, the energized monitor lizard approached Xiao Chen, and it was impossible to avoid it. Xiao Chen jumped up, forming mysterious magic seals with his hands, and a bright light shone out, like stars, covering the khaki-colored monitor lizard. There was a rumbling sound in the air, and the energized giant lizard was like porcelain, with huge cracks appearing, and then burst and dissipated in the air. However, the earthy yellow light still shrouded Xiao Chen inside, and a shocking thing happened. The yellow light began to petrify, sealing Xiao Chen into a stone statue. Zhao Liner, the royal goddess, is a beautiful woman with unparalleled beauty. After a great battle, she has added a heroic temperament, making her alluring beauty even more attractive. Brother Ji Yuluo really has superb skills. Such a gorgeous attack is really amazing. Thank you Brother Ji Yuluo for your sincere help. Your Highness is very polite. I feel very honored to be able to serve His Highness. Brother Ji Yuluo, you really make me feel uneasy. In order to deal with Xiao Chen, you have encountered unexpected events and lost many good players. I am really sad and uneasy. After Ji Yuluo wiped out the powerful enemy, he looked humble and sincere, and said with some sadness, I'm fine, but it's a pity for the dead, they are all like my brothers. Of course, these words will give people a good impression, and there will be warmth in the hearts of the surrounding masters. As the heir of a family, Ji Yuluo is naturally well versed in this method. Click, with a sound of cracking, a huge crack appeared on Xiao Chen's petrified statue, and then it suddenly began to crack, and it exploded with a boom. Chapter 26 The Immortal King. Xiao Chen's whole body was shrouded in a bright light, as if he was covered with a layer of holy armor. He was safe and sound. The chi refining diagram on the ancient stone tablet is indeed extremely mysterious. Zhang Gong protected his body, and he did not really encounter petrification. It is impossible for him to love to fight in this situation now. His body was shrouded in a faint light and soared into the sky, like a flying bird passing by, falling towards a huge ancient tree. Zhao Liner and Ji Yuluo reacted quickly. They rushed forward in an instant, and the surrounding masters even swarmed after them, wanting to work together to surround and kill the surviving Xiao Chen. Jumping up, Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner met Xiao Chen's palms in the air, and pieces of brilliant light burst out continuously in the air, and the nearby forests that had been destroyed continued to explode with a bang, and branches, leaves and sawdust flew everywhere. With the help of their palms, Xiao Chen landed on a giant tree, and then stepped on the branches to leap to the canopy of a giant tree next to him, leaping away like a vigorous ape. Ji Yuluo's face was very ugly. Although he was healed by the light of life, he lost too much blood and hurt his vitality. As a result, he was forced to fall back to the ground by Xiao Chen. Finally, he couldn't help but let out a roar, and the leader wanted to chase him down. But at this moment, the sound of breaking came again, and the 3 ice sculptures suddenly shattered, and the 3 skeletons were not trapped to death. They broke the confinement, regained their freedom, and calmly pierced through the 3 people nearby. There was a sudden chaos in the forest, and the performance of the 3 undead creatures made some attendants feel a little scared, but the 3 skeletons did not kill again, and fled towards the depths of the swamp as quickly as Xiao Chen. It had been a long time since the setting sun disappeared, and the swamp was gloomy and dark. At this moment, Xiao Chen had already held his breath. Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner led the crowd in hot pursuit. They didn't want to give Xiao Chen any more chances, and they decided to kill him in this forest today. However, at this moment, a plop was heard suddenly, and someone fell down in the dark woodland for no reason. Thump, another person fell to the ground. No, miasma, go back, it's corpse miasma. Ji Yuluo raised his eyebrows when the first person fell to the ground, and he realized it in an instant. With the help of the pale moonlight falling down, a faint mist can be seen rising from the swamp. There was a great chaos in the death swamp, and everyone fled in panic, as if the end was coming. The black mist is lingering, the breath of death is fluctuating, and the swamp has become a dead zone. Taking Zhao Liner and Ji Yuluo's cultivation as an example, they can hold their breath for a long time, and the corpse miasma can't harm their lives for the time being. But other people are different, everyone is dizzy, and some people fall to the ground from time to time. When rushing out of this swamp, only 5 people rushed out following Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner, and the rest of them all fell in the dead zone behind them. Ji Yuluo's face was ashen, and his expression was extremely gloomy. If all those people died, there would be no one under his command. Gritting his teeth, he turned to Zhao Liner and said, "His Highness, please help me enter the swamp and bring those people out. I have a way to restore them." Zhao Liner also had lingering fears, feeling that Xiao Chen was really difficult to deal with. She didn't say anything, and rushed into the swamp of death with Ji Yuluo, bringing out all the fainted people. Outside the swamp, there was a large group of people lying down. These people were about to stop breathing, and black lines had appeared on their skin, and the corpse poison had already penetrated into their bodies. Holy purification! As Ji Yuluo yelled, a picture scroll was spread out, and milky white light shrouded the open space like a light curtain, and all the people who were heavily poisoned by corpses groaned, and a faint black mist rose from their bodies, and then there were bursts of chucking sounds in the white light, turning into nothingness. After the extremely precious purification scroll was used, everyone was out of danger. Xiao Chen didn't know that Ji Yuluo would have such a life-saving thing. At this moment, he had joined the 3 skeletons, walked out of the swamp, and recovered his vitality in another direction. We must not let him go like this. Ji Yuluo's face was gloomy, and he suffered a heavy loss today, and his heart was raging with anger. Zhao Liner frowned slightly, and said, "However, there is a natural barrier of corpse miasma, which has brought a lot of trouble. It's okay, I still have a scroll unused." Half an hour later, when all the people lying on the ground recovered, Ji Yuluo unfolded a scroll and chanted, "Dispel evil and darkness, protect me with divine light." The scrolls turned into fly ash, and half of the people were shrouded in a holy radiance. Their bodies glowed faintly, making them particularly eye-catching in the night. The other half were not within the envelope of the holy light, and were not blessed with sacred protection, and were left outside the swamp to meet them. He was taken aback when these people appeared in front of Xiao Chen, and he led the 3 skeletons into the swamp again. However, this time, the corpse miasma has no effect on those people, and it will automatically drift away after touching the holy light, and everyone is no longer afraid of this swamp of death. Ji Yuluo and Zhao Lin'er led the crowd to chase and kill Xiao Chen and the three skeletons, fleeing in embarrassment and falling into death several times. In the end, Xiao Chen ignored the obstruction of the three skeletons and rushed towards the central area of the dark swamp. Of course, he slowed down in the process and tried his best to keep pace with everyone. Roar! An incomparably eerie and terrifying howl suddenly sounded in the swamp of death. This ghostly howl made people feel their scalps go numb. The howling sound was extremely evil and terrifying. The mud ahead was extremely dark, and a huge corpse with a height of 10 meters was vaguely seen roaring upwards, and the breath of death was violently moving, as if entering an eerie hell. Roar! There was another ghostly howl that sent chills down the spine, and the endless darkness surged in an instant, and it turned out to be the surging death corpse aura. The people who chased and killed Xiao Chen were horrified to find that the sacred radiance covering the body was extinguished in an instant, and the terrible death energy defeated the sacred radiance. No, go back, it's the immortal king, Ji Yuluo yelled, his voice trembling. Everyone's heart was terrified, and their souls trembled in fright. The king of undead creatures has always only appeared in legends. After growing to the extreme level, even the gods will change color. Everyone fled like desperately, and everyone was terrified to the extreme. Why did you meet the king of the undead creatures? Ji Yuluo thought this angrily while being terrified, but he was relieved when he thought that this was a sealed prehistoric ancient island. Although Xiao Chen had been mentally prepared, but at this time he was also shocked and fled away from the crowd. And at this time, the three skeletons rushed over from nowhere, pulling him to flee left and right in the dark swamp. Endless death energy was raging, and Ji Yuluo's men kept falling down in the swamp. Behind them, a terrifying huge corpse followed in the darkness unhurriedly, reaping life at will. Xiao Chen took a quick glance in the distance, and couldn't help taking a breath. Suddenly, he saw a pair of huge rotten wings behind the 10-meter-high corpse. The death energy surged, and the endless darkness blocked his sight, so he couldn't see it anymore. Chapter 27 Moonlit Night Slaughter. Xiao Chen secretly rejoiced that he was out of the sight of the undead king, and he and the three skulls rushed out of the swamp without looking back. And in the endless darkness behind, there were horrified screams from time to time, the shrill voice was full of fear, and it was creepy to hear. He led the three skeletons around the death swamp, and quickly rushed to the direction where Ji Yuluo and others broke through. The undead king didn't chase out of the gloomy swamp, it seemed to be walking casually, just harvesting some lives. When Xiao Chen chased here, he happened to see Ji Yuluo Zhao and Zhao Liner's footsteps were vain, leading 2 or 3 people out of the swamp of death, joined the people who were meeting outside, and fled towards the distance as if desperately. Xiao Chen turned his head and glanced into the swamp. A 10-meter-high dead figure seemed to be chewing a corpse in the endless ghostly dead air. 2 cold and dark green lights of death emanated from the eyes, which looked extremely terrifying in the gloomy and dark forest. Roar! There was a deafening roar, the mountains and forests shook, and endless death energy shot up into the sky, covering the moon, and in a trance, I saw a pair of huge rotten wings stretched out. Xiao Chen and the 3 skulls didn't turn back, they turned and chased in the direction where Ji Yuluo and the others were fleeing. Along the way, he found 2 corpses. The state of death was horrific. The bodies were corroded by the dead air, and there were many bones exposed in many places. After chasing for only 3 or 4 miles, he caught up with Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner's group. It was obvious that Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner were both dead, and their fighting strength was not as good as before. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be caught up so quickly. When they saw Xiao Chen chasing after with 3 skeletons, everyone's expressions became ugly. Ji Yuluo raised his eyebrows at that time. He was extremely angry today, the casualties were heavy in the First World War today, and now the entire army is in danger of being wiped out. He is extremely angry and regretful. Right now, his combat power has really dropped drastically, and the corpse aura has soaked into his body. If he doesn't expel it as soon as possible, his life may be in danger. Zhao Liner is all over the city and the country, although she is very embarrassed at the moment, she can't hide her demeanor, but Rushui's eyes are full of hostility when she looks at Xiao Chen, and she never expected that she will lose so miserably when she has an absolute advantage. My lord, retreat quickly, let's break the rear. 10 figures blocked the way of Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons, and another 3 figures protected Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner to retreat like flying. At this moment, without any extra words, Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons rushed up quickly. This was a one-sided massacre. The sword energy in the forest surged vertically and horizontally, and as Xiao Chen swung his long sword fiercely, a head flew obliquely away, and the headless corpse sprayed out blood waves more than 2 meters high, and then fell to the ground. Then, there was a shrill scream, and 3 snow-white skeletons grabbed a person's hands and feet, tearing him apart. Before the screams stopped, the long sword in Xiao Chen's hand struck another person, blood splashed, and the body that had been cut in half was broken into 2 pieces and fell into a pool of blood. The difference in combat power was too great. Xiao Chen's bloody methods and the brutality of the 3 skeletons made the remaining few feel terrified. At this moment, they forgot their loyalty, and they couldn't care less about stopping them. Everyone followed Ji Yuluo's back in fear and fled. This is a death hunt. Xiao Chen was like a Shira bathed in blood, waving the sword of destruction continuously along the way, and as the corpses continued to fall, his body was spattered with blood. Puff! Blood spattered and heads rolled down. Puff! The lungs were pierced, and the corpse toppled over. Puff! The oblique shoulder was cut off, and the blood gushed wildly. All the way to kill blood. When the head of the last blocker was cut off, Xiao Chen was completely stained red with blood. At this moment, like a god of killing, he and the 3 skeletons once again blocked the way of Zhao Liner and Ji Yuluo. Several black lines appeared on the arms of Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner, and the corpse aura from the undead king spread further. Now, there is only one guard left by Ji Yuluo's side. That guard stared at Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons coldly without saying a word, and with a chuck sound in his hand, he fired a flame knife, which looked dazzling in the night, with both the heat of the flame and the sharpness of a cold soldier. At this moment, Xiao Chen didn't need to act in a hurry, the opponent's combat power could not resist him at all, and now he and the 3 skeletons had the absolute upper hand. He looked at the master holding the flaming knife in amazement, and said, "How did you stimulate the flaming knife?" HMPH. The man snorted coldly and ignored him. Xiao Chen wasn't angry when he couldn't get any answers. He turned to look at Zhao Liner and said, "I don't want to taunt you as a winner. How do you think I should deal with you?" Sensing Xiao Chen's gaze sweeping over her body, Zhao Liner's exquisite and graceful body took a step back. She put away her cold and aloof look, and instead smiled, very calm, and said, "I know the so-called winner and loser, but it's hard to say who will be the winner in the end." Looking at the city of Qingren, and then looking at the country of Qingren, the royal goddess is indeed peerless, and she is still magnificent in this situation. Who will become the king and who will become the bandit, we will see for ourselves in a while. After finishing speaking, Xiao Chen turned his head to face the brown-haired man Ji Yuluo, and said calmly, "I don't want to talk nonsense, I can't let you live, and I don't want to leave hidden dangers for myself. But before it's over, I still can't help but ask, what is the scroll you released?" Contrary to Xiao Chen's expectations, Ji Yuluo actually responded to his question, saying, "The ancient Oriental and Western spells, the application of fusion techniques. Is the flame knife also an application of this technique?" Good. After getting an affirmative answer, Xiao Chen nodded. The longevity realm was even more mysterious than he imagined, and he could only understand many things after experiencing it himself. "Ji Yuluo, do you do it yourself, or should I do it?" Xiao Chen pointed the cold sword in his hand at Ji Yuluo's chest. Far away from the swamp of death, the bright moonlight was exceptionally soft, but at the moment the forest was full of murderous intent. The 3 skeletons were shining white under the moonlight, and their jaws kept opening and closing, making the sound of click, 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 which looked extremely terrifying under the moonlit night. Chapter 28 Hard as Iron. Ji Yuluo sneered twice, then suddenly became angry and rushed towards Xiao Chen. It was useless to say anything now. Zhao Liner also followed up. Escaping has been proven to be ineffective. The only way out is to endure the attack of corpse aura and kill Xiao Chen. 2 long swords intersected and slashed towards Xiao Chen's chest and abdomen. At the same time, the man holding the flame knife also rushed forward, slashing Xiao Chen's neck with the blazing long knife. The long sword in Xiao Chen's hand also burst into a brilliant light, opening and closing, sweeping the attacking momentum of the 3 people. At the same time, the 3 skeletons turned into 3 white lights and charged forward, competing against the 3 masters ahead. Obviously, Zhao Liner and Ji Yuluo were entangled in corpse aura, and their due combat power was weakened a lot. Even if they joined forces, they would be at a disadvantage. The sword energy in the forest was soaring into the sky. Xiao Chen turned around and slashed backwards, and a dazzling sword light erupted with the sword in the back, and it slashed across the back of Zhao Liner's neck. The black hair flew all over the sky, and the long hair of the royal goddess was chopped off at the neck. Zhao Liner was so shocked that she was covered in cold sweat. She was born in the royal family and had never experienced this kind of experience. She was almost sent to the gate of death by someone using the sword edge. Ji Yuluo was also terrified. In his opinion, Xiao Chen was extremely dangerous. He was a person with a firm heart. He would not show any mercy to such peerless beauties. If he looked at them indifferently, what else would he not dare to do? Originally, he wanted to impress Xiao Chen with great benefits at the critical moment and negotiate with him, but now he completely dismissed the idea in his mind. When Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner were startled, the long sword in Xiao Chen's hand had already shattered into the flame knife, and the extremely bright sword slashed down, cutting off the shoulder of the man holding the knife. Blood splashed everywhere, and the two stumps fell on the bloody ground in the forest. Seeing Xiao Chen approaching with a blood-dripping iron sword, and 3 skeletons outflanking their retreat from behind, Ji Yuluo's complexion was cloudy, while Zhao Liner frowned slightly, but there was no countermeasure. Okay, everything should be over. Xiao Chen was very calm when he said these words, but it made Ji Yuluo and Zhao Liner feel a sense of urgency. Woo, roar a! At this moment, a shrill cry of ape came from a distance. The terrain here is relatively high, and it can be clearly seen that a dozen vigorous animal shadows are flying across the canopy, like riding clouds and fog, flying 8 or 9 meters away with just a touch on the branches and leaves. They are really extremely agile and fast, rushing here. Zhao Liner's face changed suddenly, and she recognized in an instant that there were more than a dozen giant apes, which had once protected Xiao Chen, and she had killed one of them a few days ago. This place is not very far from the habitat of the great apes, and the sound of the battle startled them. In just a moment, more than a dozen giant apes rushed to this area. They were all about 3 meters tall and covered with black hair. They looked very scary under the moonlit night. The 4-armed ape in the middle was 4 meters tall, the blood-colored hair on its body shone with a strange light under the moonlit night, and the 2 rays of light shining through its eyes were like cold electricity, staring at Zhao Liner coldly. Xiao Chen called the 3 skeletons to his side, and with the appearance of more than a dozen vengeful giant apes, I am afraid that without him doing anything, the outcome of the battle would have no suspense. But suddenly, an extremely dazzling light erupted in the forest, and a large piece of lightning intertwined together, like a giant net, enveloped a dozen alien apes. In a hurry, all the great apes were knocked down by the lightning except for the bloody giant ape. Their whole bodies were convulsed, it was difficult to move, even the bloody giant ape's footsteps were sloppy. The drastic change left people at a loss for a while. However, at this moment, the little Pegasus horse, whose head was as white as jade and shone faintly, turned into a silver ray and charged towards Zhao Liner, carrying her away in an instant. This accident was too sudden. The blood-colored giant ape roared violently, like a thunderstorm in the moonlit night, its body cracked and sparked, and the paralysis was released. After a while, all the giant apes that were twitching on the ground also recovered, and then chased after them without looking back. All this is so sudden. Now only Ji Yuluo stood there alone, but he did not show despair, on the contrary, there was a smile on the corner of his mouth. Xiao Chen had a premonition that something was wrong, left an afterimage on the spot, and rushed forward quickly. But, after all, it was still a step too late. A scroll that Ji Yuluo unfolded, actually carried him up into the air, floating to high altitude. I always thought it was a tasteless scroll, but I don't want to use it to escape today. When Ji Yuluo said these words, he stared at Xiao Chen viciously with unspeakable annoyance and anger. Xiao Chen asked coldly, "Why didn't you escape earlier?" "Because it can only carry one person. I guess that little unicorn holy beast may appear, and it is obviously not beautiful to use the scroll to escape alone too early. Of course, if the little unicorn holy beast does not come, and the moment of life and death really comes, I will naturally run away. Hey, what happened now has not verified my guess. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to leave now?" Ji Yuluo's eyes were dark and he stared at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen didn't show any anger, but said in a cold voice, "You are playing with fire, not only at the beginning but also now." Having said that, he swiped a few times towards the distance from the air, and several bright rays of light shot out, as if turning into a giant hand in the air, sweeping the long swords beside the dead bodies into his hand. Then he soared into the air and jumped towards the crown of a giant tree, and the distance between him and Ji Yuluo was rapidly shortening. Ji Yuluo yelled that he was not good, and drove the flying picture scroll, rushing towards the distance like flying. Xiao Chen left an afterimage on the tall tree crown, and then rushed to the crown of another even taller giant tree. He stepped on the treetop and turned into a light and shadow to chase away tens of meters, and rushed to the crown of the tallest ancient tree in this area. The distance to Ji Yuluo was approaching quite quickly, his body glowed brightly, as if it was boiling due to too fast speed, and the flames danced on his body like a raging fire. At this moment, he fiercely threw the first long sword in his hand. The long sword was infused with the purest vitality by Xiao Chen, turning all the iron into gold essence, and the long sword shone brightly like a rainbow, piercing through the calm night sky. Puff! Blood burst into the air, and a large amount of blood sprayed down. Ji Luo let out a scream, and the long sword pierced through his right arm, and even cut it off. The broken arm fell down, and blood rained all over the sky. Chapter 29 The God's Legacy. Ji Luo's miserable cry resounded through the sky, and the severe pain made it difficult for him to maintain his balance in the air. The scroll carried him swaying forward, and there was a tendency to keep falling. Xiao Chen stepped on the treetops, jumped from one crown to another, his body turned into a faint phantom, and after chasing for tens of meters, he threw his second sword. The bright long sword shone with dazzling light, like a shooting star passing through the air, hitting Ji Luo with a long tail light. Puff! Blood splashed, and the second sword hit again. This sword directly pierced Ji Luo's chest and abdomen, almost nailing him down. Scalp-numbing screams reverberated in the air, and long blood sprayed down from the sky. Ji Luo, who was seriously injured and dying, tried his best to control the picture scroll, and quickly flew towards the distance. Under the bright moonlight, Xiao Chen stood on the top of the canopy, looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. His long hair danced wildly, his eyes were as sharp as blades. He finally completely reversed the situation in tonight's battle, let out a bad breath, and no longer had to run away. King Qin Guang, King Yan Luo, and King Reincarnation climbed up the crown of the tree and came to Xiao Chen's side. Under the moonlight, the three snow-white skeletons stared at the bright moon in the sky. The light of the soul in their heads fluctuated, as if they were recalling something. In the forest in the second half of the night, the roar of the beasts disappeared, and it was extraordinarily quiet. The soft moonlight fell on the forest, like a large piece of white feathers, and the forest was harmonious and peaceful. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the canopy of the tree, and the moonlight was drawn by the rotating profound art, flowing slowly like water waves, and the faint holy glow flowed over the canopy, making this place extraordinarily peaceful and peaceful. After a fierce battle, Xiao Chen's body was already very empty, and the pure energy of the moonlight was constantly being absorbed, replenishing his almost depleted body. The three skeletons are also quietly refining the spar that Xiao Chen gave them, and the snow-white skeletons have added a little luster, especially their skulls, which are reflected by the light of the soul, are crystal clear, and seem to have signs of jade. The night is calm and peaceful at this moment. The stars in the sky gradually faded, and the east gradually revealed a little blush. Morning came, and in the quiet virgin forest, the birds were the first to come alive. Xiao Chen's whole body was shrouded in a hazy brilliance, and a few birds were dancing and singing beside him, and he had already integrated into the nature. Until he opened his eyes, the forest bird was startled, and he felt the energy surging all over his body, and the brilliant brilliance continuously flowed on his body surface. After washing off the blood stains all over his body by a clear stream, and eating an extremely sumptuous game breakfast, Xiao Chen led the three skeletons on the road. Groups of galloping giant elephants, winged leopards, giant golden centipedes as thick as buckets, and three-headed tiger kings like hills. Along the way, huge and terrifying roars of beasts continued to resound in the primitive old forest. Traveling through the mountains and forests, Xiao Chen brought the three skeletons to the former residence. Beside the sapphire-like small lake, the green bamboo house still stood upright, exuding the fragrance of grass and trees, surrounded by vines and radishes, and the flowers and plants were fragrant. Without staying here, they walked through the lush woodland and came to the seaside. Xiao Chen began to dry the sea salt, planning to go after Zhao Liner and Ji Luo after collecting enough. The morning sun was shining golden, and the three skeletons hated the sun so much that they hid in the coconut grove by the beach, unwilling to come out. Xiao Chen himself filled the seawater with coconut shells and dried the sea salt, but at this moment, he found a figure in the sea. A man in white rushed quickly from the depths of the sea, cutting a wave of water like a divine fish. Very shocking picture, the man in white is not swimming, but standing on the sea level. It's getting closer, I finally see clearly. A young monk in white, with his feet on a wooden rafter, moved with the wind, like a banished fairy riding on waves, floating out of the dust indescribably. Yi Wei crossing the river Dharma commits suicide. The supreme body technique that has been lost for many years in the world. Xiao Chen was quite surprised. This is definitely a master, so he had to guard against it. The slightly salty sea breeze blew gently, and the monk in white stepped on the waves and came to the beach. He looked at Xiao Chen with some surprise, but he calmed down quickly, and walked onto the beach. Are you? The white-clothed monk was different from ordinary monks. He did not recite the name of the Buddha, did not call him a benefactor, and asked like ordinary people. Seeing that this young monk had an extraordinary demeanor, Xiao Chen used the most concise words to identify himself. In order to survive in the longevity realm in the future, he must properly handle the relationship with the cultivators in this realm. The white-clothed monk seemed very surprised, and said, "My Dharma name is Yijun." He didn't call himself a poor monk, but called himself, like an ordinary person. Although his words were not like a monk, he exuded a supernatural and refined temperament, but he looked like an eminent monk in terms of bearing. The two chatted briefly, and unknowingly walked into the coconut grove. The three skeletons seemed to sense the stranger's approach, and retreated quietly. "Master Yijun, what's so strange about this island?" Xiao Chen had too many questions in his mind. Wang Zifeng, Ji Yuluo and others came to this island one after another, obviously with important purposes. Now the monk Yijun also came to this island, which shows that the desert island is unusual. This island is called Dragon Island. In the ancient prehistoric era, the steel of the gods descended from the sky sealed it forever. All the dragons who could fight against the gods lost their mana forever and were imprisoned on this deserted island. Xiao Chen finally understands why the 8-armed evil dragon that can compete with the sea god, and the Tyrannosaurus, one of the kings of the dragon clan, have more animal nature than divinity. On this deserted island that is forever towned by the god monument, they have lost their great supernatural powers. Why did this happen? Xiao Chen asked puzzled. Monk Yijun understood Xiao Chen's state of mind at the moment, and briefly told him about the ancient deeds of the longevity world. No one knows what happened. After the dragon clan was suppressed, ancestor gods such as Suiren, Yuchao, and Fuxi, as well as Laozi, Yuan, Tongtian, and Buddha, all disappeared. At that time, a big change may have occurred, and those gods disappeared completely. How could this be? Xiao Chen couldn't understand, turned his head to look at Monk Yijun, and said, "Is there no god in the world?" "You can't say that. The longevity world is vast and full of races. The ancestor gods are gone. Although Lao Tzu, Buddha and other powerful people have also disappeared, the legends of foreign gods are still circulating. Many things are difficult to explain clearly. You need to go to that vast continent to understand it yourself." Chapter 30 The Legend of the Dragon. Foreign race. God. Yes, in the future you may see a 20-meter-tall giant, a perfect creature with a lifespan of thousands of years, and a flying race with energy and light wings. Xiao Chen suddenly asked, "How do the legendary Bodhidharma, Dugu Chubai, Lang Fanyan and others compare with the gods?" Yijun nodded, and said, "These outstanding people who have broken through life and death may already be called gods." "Master Yijun, can you take the liberty to ask, is there any urgent matter for you to come to Dragon Island?" Yijun smiled and said, "I don't dare to be a mage, just call me Yijun. I came here to try my luck and see if I can find Zulong." Xiao Chen showed surprise, and said with some hesitation, "Ancestor dragon. Could it be a totem of the human world? Isn't this an illusory existence in the legend? The so-called ancestral dragon is the legendary dragon in the human world. The royal family has always regarded itself as the emperor of the dragon, but the dragon has never appeared in the real world after all, unlike Tyrannosaurus, Pterosaur, Brontosaurus, etc. that did exist in the world, and later generations believe that it is just a fictional existence." Monk Yijun said seriously, "Ancestral dragons do exist, but there seems to be only one in the world, and they are never seen in pairs. It is a dragon among dragons. It may be born of Tyrannosaurus, or Stegosaurus, any dragon may give birth to it. From the young dragon stage, it has been fighting fiercely among the small dragons, constantly transforming, changing its original form, until defeating all dragons, and transforming into a 5-clawed ancestor dragon. In this way, the ancestral dragon is not born. It emerged from the thousands of dragons in the acquired battle and transformed. Yes, any young dragon has the possibility to transform into an ancestor dragon. However, the real ancestor dragon already has a horny head in its infancy, so it is easy to be recognized." Monk Yijun looked at the Dragon Island where wild beasts roared one after another, and said, "The prophets of all races on the mainland have predicted that an ancestor dragon will be born on Dragon Island, and the sealed Dragon Island may also be unsealed because of it. Dragon Island, as the name suggests, is the island where many dragons live. The ancient dragon clan was suppressed here, and it did have the conditions to produce an ancestor dragon. The ancient dragon clan, if it is not suppressed, can fight against the gods. The legendary ancestral dragon can only be amazing. In this way, it is easy to understand why Wang Zifeng, Ji Yuluo and others came here. It would be unimaginable if they could subdue the infant Zulong." Monk Yijun shook his head with a smile again, and said, "Finding the Zulong is just a luxury. If I can find a companion dragon king during this trip, it will be enough. The companion dragon king. When each ancestor dragon is born, several companion dragon kings will be born. Their strength is not much weaker than that of the ancestor dragon, and they are the best whetstones for the ancestor dragon. They are like the ancestor dragon, and they are tall and horny when they are young, so they can be easily recognized. They can also continuously transform in battle. Zulong's path is cruel, Xiao Chen exclaimed. Yes, it is very cruel, otherwise it is impossible to have the strength to make the gods tremble. Xiao Chen suddenly thought of a question: since the Zulong is so powerful, will those heroes who have lived forever in the world appear here to look for the little Zulong? For this question, a true answer made Xiao Chen feel the strangeness of Longdao further. After Dragon Island was sealed off, not only the dragons on the island lost their magical powers, but even the gods who broke into the island had to face the same situation. However, after the gods left here, they could recover after a long period of cultivation, and the dragons were not so lucky. Therefore, the stronger the person, the less he dared to enter Dragon Island. In addition, the surrounding thousands of miles of sea area has also been affected. Under normal circumstances, it is a dead zone, and it is difficult to pass through. It is a veritable sea of AA taboos. Only every hundreds of years, the death imprisonment of the taboo sea will disappear for a period of time, and now it is another reincarnation, and the sea area can be passed unimpeded for the time being. Master Yijun, did you come across the sea by yourself? Yijun shook his head, and said, this island is tens of thousands of miles away from the mainland, and I don't have the strength to cross the sea alone. I came by boat with some cultivators. We know from the notes of our ancestors that there are also fierce dragons in the sea around Long Island, so when we approach here, we will act separately. I am just a step ahead. While the two were talking, several figures appeared in the blue sea, quickly approaching here from all directions. Some people use profound skills to drive small boats to rush forward, and some people use flying scrolls to come through the sky. What surprised Xiao Chen the most was that a blonde young man came flying directly. Seeing Xiao Chen's astonishment, Monk Yijun explained, that is the god-given spellcaster of the Western tribe, and it is said that they can borrow the power of the gods they believe in. Several figures rushed up the beach quickly, and they seemed surprised to see Monk Yijun standing with a tall and handsome young man. Xiao Chen was also looking at them. They seemed to be outstanding people, and everyone had an extraordinary temperament. Beautiful women will always attract people's attention, and the alluring beauties who make the bright moon look pale will always be the focus of people's attention. Among the 4 people who boarded the beach, there is such a stunning woman, who is not inferior to the royal goddess Zhao Liner. Yan Qingcheng, the descendant of the immortal evil king line. There was still some distance between the two parties, and Yijun introduced Xiao Chen alone in a low voice. It's a very special name, but it's too appropriate. The graceful jade body is like the most perfect masterpiece in the sky. If you stand among the flowers, all the flowers will be eclipsed. Against the background of the elegant purple dress, Rushui's skin is more delicate and charming, her long black hair is naturally draped over her shoulders, the eyes under her long eyelashes are full of aura, her nose is straight, her red lips are moist, her teeth are like jade, her unparalleled face seems to be shrouded in a faint mist, like a dream or a fantasy. Yan Qingcheng, it is impossible not to be remembered deeply. Such a beautiful and peerless woman will be deeply imprinted in the hearts of everyone who sees her for the first time. However, Xiao Chen felt something was wrong. This woman might be his mortal enemy. Yan Qingcheng was probably the junior sister of Wang Zifeng who was attacked and killed by him. Yan Qingcheng was so magnificent that it attracted people's attention. Among the 4 people, the one who went to the beach last was not handsome at all, but he was equally eye-catching. This man was 3 meters tall, much taller than ordinary people, with long brown hair scattered over his shoulders, thick eyebrows and leopard eyes, and a rough appearance. Moreover, he had a pair of erect wolf ears and a long and powerful tiger tail, which really surprised Xiao Chen. Monk Yijun whispered to Xiao Chen, Kaiao is a young and strong barbarian. The barbarian population is very small, but they are born warriors with unrivaled force. Legend has it that ancient and powerful beast souls are sealed in the bodies of this tribe, so they are also called the beast tribe. Xiao Chen looked at the 3-meter-tall Kaiao, imagining his powerful explosive power and the unknown terrifying beast soul. Such a person must be extremely brave. The sound of fine sand flowing could be heard on the beach, and green vines emerged from the sand. This was really a surprising thing. The vines surrounded a young man in front of him. Originally, his appearance was very ordinary, and he was the most difficult to attract attention among the 4 people who went to the beach, but now he has become the focus of attention. Dragon Island really has a strange power, my spiritual power has been disturbed. Hearing his conclusion, several people at the scene frowned. Monk Yijun explained to Xiao Chen in a low voice. Yared, a young strong man of the forest tribe, people of his tribe have the spiritual power to control plants. Yalad has long dark green hair, even his pupils are light green, his appearance is very ordinary, and his body is also very thin, but Xiao Chen dare not underestimate this person's strength. But in just a short moment, the beach was already full of greenery. This young man of a different race had a very unique ability, and his attack and killing methods were also very special. Chapter 31 Pterosaur vs Demigod. The fourth person is a tall and handsome young man, the young strong man who flew from the sky just now. He was about 20 years old, with long golden hair, as bright as a golden flame, and his face was as handsome as a precious jade. The whole person exudes a noble temperament, even standing in the endless crowd, people can quickly notice him, attracting attention like a golden sun. Monk Yijun whispered. Rand, a strong young man from the western tribe, is a god-given spellcaster. This kind of practitioner is also called a spellcaster. It is said that they can borrow the power of the gods they believe in. Xiao Chen is very envious of the flying ability of Curse Master Rand. A warrior like him wants to fly in the air, and the road is very long and tortuous. The two parties have already joined together. Monk Yijun smiled and introduced to several people. I would like to introduce a new friend to you, Xiao Chen from the human world. The four people who walked into the coconut forest were all shocked, they stared at Xiao Chen in disbelief. Xiao Chen knew that they had misunderstood, and said, I didn't come here by breaking the void, I just entered the world of longevity by mistake. After a brief explanation, the expressions of the four people calmed down, and they no longer paid attention to him. Obviously, the four of them didn't value Xiao Chen very much, they were far less friendly than Monk Yijun, and they didn't even have a word with him. Xiao Chen smiled self-deprecatingly. The world of longevity is also very realistic, without a strong background of strength, no one will be valued anywhere. Roar-a! The deafening roar of the dragon came from the depths of the sea, like thunder in the sky, and the sea fluctuated violently. On the sea level in the distance, two large ships quickly collapsed, and a huge dragon shadow was churning, tearing the ship apart with a destructive force. It's our ship, the barbarian young strongman Kaio said angrily. His 3-meter-high body was tense, exuding a dangerous aura like a beast. The distance is too far away. I'm afraid it will be difficult for our people to escape to the seaside. It will be troublesome to leave this island in the future. Arod, a young and strong man of the forest tribe, spoke softly and seemed not in a hurry. Monk Yijun looked at the huge dragon shadow in the sea, and said, it won't be long before more cultivators will come to Dragon Island, and we can take their boats to leave. Ho, ho. Gradually, everyone felt that something was wrong. The 8-armed dragon had disappeared into the sea, but the roar of the dragon still came from time to time, and the sound seemed to be different from that of the overlord in the water. The white-clothed monk Yijun suddenly pointed at Yuankong and exclaimed in shock, there is a strong man fighting the dragon. The strong young men by the sea were all shocked. In the distant sky, a dragon shadow hovered in the air, and a human figure was fighting fiercely with it, bursting out pieces of splendid divine light from time to time. A strong person who can fight fiercely with a dragon, even if he is not a god, his realm is not far behind. The battle in the air was very fierce, bursts of bright light burst out, one person and one dragon gradually approached the island from the far sky, and now the battle situation can be clearly seen. It was a pterosaur with a length of 15 meters. The dragon scales all over its body shone brilliantly, exuding great coercion. As the pterosaur approached, the roars of the beasts at the edge of the island disappeared. This is definitely a terrifying beast. A pair of dragon wings stretched out for a full 30 meters, casting a large shadow light covering the sky and covering the ground, and the turbulent wind can be sensed on the ground. What makes Xiao Chen feel unbelievable is that this silver fierce dragon, which is emitting divine light, can display great supernatural powers freely, and it seems that it does not belong to the sealed dragon clan at all. A series of terrifying lightning flashed wildly from its mouth. The sound of rumbling thunder resounded through the sky, it was deafening, the terrifying thunder light intertwined in the sky, and there were terrifying lightning everywhere, the momentum was huge. In addition, the holy fire of the pterosaurs that filled the sky continued to spew out. The blazing flames seemed to burn up the void, and the entire sky turned into a sea of AA flames, and the terrifying aura was overwhelming. Master Yijun, didn't you say that all the dragons have been sealed? How can this pterosaur be able to freely display its supernatural powers? Xiao Chen finally couldn't help asking. Pterosaur. It's a name from so long ago, I almost forgot it. Yi Jun explained while watching the fierce battle in the sky. Now, on the vast and boundless continent, they are already a synonym for dragons, and ordinary people directly call them dragons. I forgot to tell you, they are the only dragons that have not been sealed. As far as Xiao Chen knows, pterosaurs are far from the most powerful dragon species among the ancient dragons, but they have such tyrannical strength, so how terrible is the real powerful ancient dragon? It's just that the other dragon clans have been sealed, and the only pterosaur clan that has not been sealed has become a dragon in the eyes of the world. Monk Yijun continued. Pterosaurs can also be subdivided into several categories, such as black dragons, bright holy dragons, golden dragons, etc. They seem to have a lot of connection with the Western race. You can ask Rand Curse Master, he must know more than me. The blonde young man Rand was very handsome, like a round of golden sun. His sea blue eyes glanced at Xiao Chen. He didn't know if the battle in the sky was too attractive, or he didn't bother to explain with Xiao Chen. His face was a little indifferent. The figure who fought against the holy dragon of light turned out to be a fallen angel. Arod of the forest tribe exclaimed in surprise. The fallen angels have not appeared in the world for more than 100 years. I never expected to see their figures here. The huge dragon body of the holy dragon of light always shone with a holy light, while the figures who fought against it were always wrapped in the dark mist, and only a few people on the ground could see her real body clearly. The long black and beautiful hair fluttered like a waterfall. Although it is impossible to see his real appearance clearly, that devilish figure really exudes infinite temptation. The exquisite and undulating body is naked, and the almost transparent black dress sets off the tall and straight peaks, slender waist, round buttocks, slender and snow-white jade legs, against which it is extremely charming. Of course, the most eye-catching thing was the pair of black wings on the back of that graceful body, emitting bursts of ghostly light. The powerful energy fluctuations swayed in the air, causing the thunder and flames that came on the impact to fade away. The fallen angel's fighting power is unmatched, and at the same time, its posture is extremely graceful. Although it is a fierce battle, all kinds of fighting postures are coherent, like a beautiful black swan dancing. The huge holy dragon of light did not have the upper hand, but was suppressed by the graceful fallen angel. Those slender hands held a huge energy lightsaber with a length of 10 meters. The black mist fluttered, and the sword glowed brightly, illuminating the entire sky. Chapter 32 The Real Longevity Realm. The holy dragon of light continued to cast spells, and brilliant rays of light erupted in the air. At the same time, its wings were like two huge magic knives, slashing horizontally and vertically in the air, resisting the fallen angels. The terrifying vitality fluctuated violently, and everyone on the ground could clearly sense that this was definitely a terrifying battle. After Monk Yijun explained in a low voice, Xiao Chen roughly understood the situation of the race of fallen angels. Fallen angels are an ancient race that is close to gods. Although their numbers are rare, their combat power is unparalleled, and the strongest among them can be said to be gods. Many weaker races in the longevity realm believe in them as gods, which has aroused the resentment of some foreign gods. It is rumored that they were hunted down and nearly exterminated, and they have not appeared on the mainland for more than 100 years. An ancient Protoss. The more Xiao Chen learned, the more mysterious the longevity realm became. Two demigod-like existences are fighting so fiercely. Monk Yijun was quite emotional. Yared, a young strong man from the forest family, said in shock, the holy dragon of light is clearly invincible. The fallen angels are indeed ruthless. She is the one who forced the holy dragon of light to come here. I'm afraid she wants to knock him down on Dragon Island. The 3-meter-tall barbarian young man Kaio nodded, and said, it should be like this. Even the pterosaurs who have not been sealed, if they fall into Dragon Island, they will also lose their supernatural powers forever. Roar. The bright holy dragon kept roaring, and finally turned into a human body, rolled up the mist all over the sky, and fought fiercely with the fallen angels in the light mist. The terrifying fluctuations enveloped the 10 directions. It seemed that it was sensed by the dragons on the Dragon Island. There were bursts of dragon roars from the depths of the island. In the end, the holy dragon of light was beaten again and manifested a huge body, let out an extremely angry roar and fell towards the Dragon Island. Its wings were slashed by the energy giant sword in the hands of the fallen angel, and at the same time a large cloud of ghostly light hit its body. The battle ended like this. The few people who watched the battle knew that once the holy dragon of light enters Dragon Island, it will lose its previous supernatural powers forever, and from then on, its animal nature will supersede its divinity. The fallen angels did not dare to approach Long Island. After the battle was won, they turned into a black light and disappeared into the sky. After a long time, the coconut grove was still quiet. This kind of battle between demigods obviously shocked everyone. The tall and strong barbarian young man Kaio, who was as tall and strong as cast steel, was the first to speak. A demigod is a demigod. Then he faced Yan Qingcheng, Rand, and Yijun and said, since everyone has arrived at Dragon Island safely, let's separate here. Arod and I will go first. Yared, the young strong man of the forest tribe, nodded towards Yan Qingcheng and the other three, and strode towards the depths of the island with Kaio. One is 3 meters tall, strong like a giant ape, and the other is thin and weak like a willow, a strange combination. However, the barbarians and the forest tribe have been friendly for generations, and their abilities are very complementary, so it is not surprising that they walk together. Xiao Chen laughed at himself, the two who left seemed to ignore him. Rand, the Western curse master like the Golden Sun, smiled slightly at Monk Yijun, and said, Master Yijun, I and Fairy Qingcheng have decided to join forces, will you join us? The magnificent Yan Qingcheng also showed a smile that could turn all living beings upside down, and said, if senior brother Yijun can join, the three of us will definitely gain a lot. Monk Yijun came from the lineage of Bodhidharma. Since the disappearance of Lao Tzu, Buddha, etc., Bodhidharma has become a top-notch powerhouse in the East. No, I have a senior who may also come to Long Island, I'd better wait for him at the beach for a few days. In that case, let's go ahead. Rand greeted Yan Qingcheng with Tongzhen, and disappeared into the depths of the coconut grove, seemingly forgetting the existence of Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen laughed at himself and didn't say anything. In the real world, strength means everything. If he is a famous and powerful man, no one would dare to underestimate him. However, he will never underestimate himself. The big waves wash away the sand, time will prove everything, who is as strong as the gold essence. Xiao Chen collected enough sea salt and bid farewell to the monk Yijun by the sea. He must get rid of Jiu Luo and Zhao Liner as soon as possible to avoid accidents. With the appearance of demigods such as fallen angels and bright holy dragons, it can be predicted that Dragon Island will inevitably be turbulent. In a few days, there will definitely be a large number of masters rushing here one after another to compete for the ancestor dragon and the accompanying dragon king. This is a place of right and wrong. When they returned to the vicinity of the Swamp of Death, 3 skeletons, King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation, turned out from the dense forest without a sound. These 3 undead creatures really regarded Xiao Chen as their partners. Xiao Chen was surprised to find that the 3 skeletons seemed to be telling him some kind of information. Their jaws kept opening and closing, and the sound of click, click, and at the same time, the snow-white bone claws kept gesticulating, and finally pulled him towards a certain direction like flying. The speed was extremely fast. Did they discover Zhao Liner and Jiu Luo? Xiao Chen quickly guessed this possibility. After passing through numerous mountains and forests, it took about 3 miles to travel. 3 skeletons brought Xiao Chen out of a valley. He had never been to this place before, and it was a relatively strange place. On the outskirts of the valley, although the tall forests are lush and lush, there are few ferocious beasts. Based on his feeling, Xiao Chen guessed that there might be terrible wild beasts living nearby. After careful observation, he found that there were many huge paw prints outside the valley, which seemed to be dragon paw prints. There is a large stone forest in the valley without any vegetation. Except for the entrance, the other sides are all steep stone walls. Xiao Chen keenly felt a powerful dragon energy. The King of Reincarnation signaled Xiao Chen to look forward with his bone claws. In the extremely open stone forest in front of him, a huge silvery monster was lying there. This is a dragon. Although the whole body cannot be seen, there is a sense of déjà vu. Xiao Chen instantly guessed that it might be the holy dragon of light who fought against the fallen angel just now. Indistinctly, he heard the slight sound of the dragon, and the silver dragon seemed to be sleeping. Chapter 33 Colorful Sacred Tree. King Qin Guang was so bold that he even signaled Xiao Chen to go forward together. Anyway, they have already come here, so there is nothing to be afraid of. Xiao Chen went forward with them and walked into the stone forest. It was that bright holy dragon. Looking at this giant from a close distance, it becomes even more tyrannical and terrifying. The huge dragon body is like casted from silver, and it is surrounded by a layer of sacred light, which makes this stone forest look extremely gorgeous. During the battle between the holy dragon of light and the fallen angel, it once manifested a human body, but at that time the sun was shining all over the sky, and Xiao Chen could not see his human body and appearance clearly. Looking at this huge dragon body like a silver mountain now, it is difficult to connect it with the figure crisscrossing the sky. The posture of the bright holy dragon is a bit strange. The silver dragon wings are tightly gathered behind the back, the hind legs are kneeling, and the front paws are on the ground. And it fell into a deep sleep like this. Judging from its demeanor, it seemed very pious and satisfied. How is this going? All of a sudden, Xiao Chen found that the holy dragon of light was kneeling in front of him, and there seemed to be a faint brilliance circulating in the stone forest. He and the 3 skeletons walked around the silver holy dragon and came to the stone forest 4 or 5 meters away from the dragon's head. A palm-high small tree with only 2 leaves, surrounded by colorful brilliance, is rooted in the stone forest, exuding waves of vitality. Miraculous little tree. Although it is no taller than the palm of your hand, anyone who sees it at first glance will think it is a small tree, not a flower. The trunk, as thick as a thumb, winding and stacking like a dragon, does not give people a sense of immaturity at all. On the contrary, it has a vigorous state, with the vicissitudes of a 10,000-year-old tree. In the middle part of the curved trunk is a black leaf, gleaming black, as if carved out of black jade, crystal clear and brilliant. And on the top of the trunk, there is a newly sprung tender leaf. The color is milky white, as if carved from suet jade, crystal clear and radiant. It is indescribably miraculous. It is amazing that the same plant can produce 2 kinds of divine leaves. Moreover, there are other colorful awns, lingering around the small tree, which makes people have to wonder, if the leaves are regenerated, new colors will not appear, right? The little tree is so miraculous, it looks like a seedling full of infinite vitality, and it also looks like an ancient holy object exuding endless vicissitudes. The 3 skeletons looked at me, I looked at you, and then looked at Xiao Chen together, and finally motioned for him to dig the little tree away. Xiao Chen shook his head again and again. This sacred tree is so extraordinary, if its roots are cut off, it would be a waste of everything. Besides, now that it is on Dragon Island, where else can it be transplanted? When the 3 skeletons saw that he was not moving, the King of Reincarnation wanted to dig it up, and so did King Qin Guang and King Yama. Xiao Chen hurriedly stopped them, gritted his teeth for the last time, dig. Rather than let them be ruined, he might as well do it. The little tree that the holy dragon of light would pay homage to would never be a mortal thing, so dig it out first. After extremely careful excavation, Xiao Chen successfully dug out the radiant sapling with a large handful of clods, and then rushed out of the valley without looking back. The 3 skeletons ran away like thieves. In the world of longevity, the vast and boundless South China Sea is full of surging blue waves and magnificent waves. Long Island is like a green pearl deep in the sea. The whole island is verdant, lush and full of vitality. Towering ancient trees and 1,000-year-old vines can be seen everywhere, and the sound of wild beasts roaring one after another. This is an ancient island that has been sealed for endless years. Holding the palm-high sacred tree in his hand, Xiao Chen quickly rushed out of the valley. His body was surrounded by brilliant light, dancing like a flame. The speed was extremely fast, leaving an afterimage in the mountains and forests, and he rushed to the death swamp in a short while. The 3 skeletons also escaped all the way, and they seemed to sense that something was going to happen, so they turned around and watched secretly while running. In the swamp, the ancient trees were dense, blocking the sunlight, making the place extremely dark. Looking at the 3 skeletons that came later, Xiao Chen was a little suspicious. Why did these 3 undead creatures panic? Nothing will happen. No matter how suspicious he was, it was difficult to communicate with the 3 skeletons. He tried to ask several times, but King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Samsara shook their heads and waved their hands. After arriving in the swamp, their nervousness disappeared. Xiao Chen didn't think the 3 skeletons were simple-minded. Ever since he saw them pretending to be dead bones and ambushed Jiu Luo insidiously, he had positioned them as equal intelligent creatures. Looking at their various performances today, it seems that they knew the existence of the sacred tree before, but why did they do it today? Suddenly, Xiao Chen couldn't help shivering. These 3 guys couldn't be so insidious. Could it be that the so-called embezzlement and frame-up were used as a scapegoat for the Guangming Shenglong who just fell to Dragon Island today? The sacred tree seems to be something with an owner. In the dark swamp, the palm-high miraculous small tree is shrouded in colorful rays of light, exuding brilliant brilliance. The winding trunk is as vigorous as a horned dragon, and 2 jade leaves of different colors are crystal clear and sparkling. Now, the most important thing is to plant this sacred seedling. It would be a sin to let such a heavenly thing wither and die. But where is the right place to plant it? Xiao Chen was in a dilemma for a while. The Death Jedi was full of gloom, and the miasma was lingering at night, which was very inappropriate. 3 skeletons surrounded it. They seemed to be very concerned about this sacred tree. 3 bone claws stretched out at the same time, wanting to pick off the leaf that was as clear as black jade. Xiao Chen hastily stopped them. What a recklessness, these 3 skeletons are really speechless. Seemingly knowing that Xiao Chen was worrying about planting the holy tree, the king of reincarnation pulled his sleeve to signal him to follow into the swamp. Walking to a secret dark place, the three skeletons casually pointed to a big tree, and then pointed to the sacred seedling. Seeing that Xiao Chen was puzzled, King Qin Guang simply took Xiao Chen's hand and asked him to stick the sacred tree on top of the giant tree. At this time, an amazing thing happened. The crystal-clear roots of the small tree automatically protruded from the soil Xiao Chen was holding, and then even glowed with colorful light, rooted into the trunk of the ancient tree. Now Xiao Chen can be sure that the three skeletons have definitely seen this small tree before, otherwise it would be impossible to understand its magic so well. The sun was lingering, and in the dark woodland, there was no longer a ghostly atmosphere. A small tree the size of a palm made the place shine brightly. And at this moment, a dragon's roar came from a few miles away. Xiao Chen leapt to the top of the towering ancient trees, looked from a distance, and found that the source of the sound came from the valley where the small tree was just dug. In the swamp of death, the three skeletons had a surprisingly tacit understanding at this moment. The three of them quickly separated and fell beside the pile of bones in the swamp, motionless, just like ordinary skeletons. Seeing all this, Xiao Chen was dumbfounded and completely speechless. The three skeletons were actually pretending to be dead. At the same time, he already understood that, as expected, the three skeletons had known the existence of the sacred seedlings for a long time, and this time it seemed that the holy dragon of light had been used as a scapegoat. Three sinister skeletons who knew how to plan. Chapter 34 Mystery. Beyond the valley, the roar was deafening. Although the holy dragon of light has lost its magical powers, it is definitely still a powerful beast on this wild island. If it goes mad and sweeps across the forest, it will definitely have no problem cracking the valley. It is hard to imagine its current situation. A bright silver light shot up into the sky, and the holy dragon of light flew out of the valley, hovering over the forest, roaring angrily. It seemed to be searching for something, swooped down continuously, cast a large shadow, and swept across the forest with a pair of huge dragon wings like heavenly knives. In the end, it even rushed to the sky above the death swamp, still roaring continuously, and the huge dragon body swelled with gusts of wind, blowing wild leaves in the swamp, and giant trees trembling. However, it didn't stay here for long, and it roared into the distance. Xiao Chen pushed Yan Luo Wang and Qin Guang Wang hard, but they still did not move. The three skeletons were like ordinary bones, lying there upright and pretending to be dead. It wasn't until a long time later that the area completely returned to calm before the three skeletons sat up cautiously. Moving the joints, the Sanju skeletons surrounded them, and finally sat under the ancient tree, looking up at the little holy tree rooted on it. In their skulls, the light of the soul kept beating, and finally pulled the radiance from the sacred tree to flow into the skulls from their eye sockets. The sacred seedlings are shrouded in colorful rays of light, but the three skeletons are only pulling a black light among them. The radiance from that crystal-clear black jade-like leaf was delighted by the three skeletons, who were trying to absorb the brilliance of the black jade leaves. This is really a holy tree. Xiao Chen secretly marveled at it, and he also started to operate the profound art, trying to absorb the brilliant brilliance that circulated. For a moment, the colorful light was shining, the light and mist were dense, and the dark swamp was brightly lit. On the two jade leaves, a milky white light beam and a black light rise together, moistening Xiao Chen's body like water waves. Two gentle rays of light surrounded him, and he felt warm and extremely comfortable all over his body. His viscera, flesh and bones seemed to be undergoing a holy baptism, and the purest vitality was slowly flowing. Xiao Chen and the three skeletons were immersed in a wonderful mysterious realm, slowly but effectively absorbing the purest vitality. It wasn't until the light gradually dimmed, and the water-like light waves gradually receded, that they each woke up. The small tree is still surrounded by the sun, but the giant tree it took root has completely lost its life at this moment. It took 5 or 6 people to embrace the towering giant tree. The original straight trunk was lifeless, and the trunk was cracked with cracks. The branches and leaves that should have been green and green were also withered and yellow. The yellow leaves fluttered and withered in the wind. The ancient tree that was originally full of vitality was completely dead in just a moment. Xiao Chen was taken aback, but the three skeletons were very calm, as if they knew this would happen. They pulled up the small tree easily, and then touched a giant tree next to it, shining brilliantly. The reason for this can be deduced without much thought. The huge vitality that the little tree needs is actually absorbed through the ancient wood, and Xiao Chen and the three skeletons have indirectly absorbed the essence of the ancient wood. Wonderful little tree, terrible little tree. The three skeletons seem to be a little bit unfinished, and they still want to absorb the black light on the black jade leaves. Xiao Chen stopped them, and now he is ready to take the three skeletons into action. The matter between Ji Luo and Zhao Liner cannot be delayed for too long, and must be resolved as soon as possible. Hiding the little tree in a dark place in the swamp, Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons set out on the road. In the dense primeval forest, monkeys cry and tigers roar, and ferocious beasts can be seen everywhere. This is a terrifying island full of dangers. According to the deduced position, Xiao Chen and the others chased after him. However, most of the day passed, but no clue was found. In the afternoon, when passing through a mountain range, there was a thunderous sound of water in front of us. A large waterfall fell to the ground like a Milky Way, and a large white water curtain hung down with a deafening sound. It has to be amazing, the sealed dragon island, many landscapes are extremely magnificent. When approaching this waterfall, Xiao Chen saw 2 familiar shadows. Standing in front of the majestic waterfall, the peerless Yan Qingcheng has a slender and graceful body, fluttering in a purple dress, with indescribable agility and elegance. The peerless beauty is like a dream. And Rand, the god-given spellcaster, has shining golden hair, and his whole body is as dazzling as a sun. It has to be said that these 2 people have peerless looks and extraordinary temperament, and they seem to be a perfect match. Misty mist, flowing slowly. Xiao Chen stopped in his tracks, and the 3 skeletons hid themselves in the woods behind him, as if they had sensed the danger. Obviously, Yan Qingcheng, who was standing on the high cliff, had also discovered Xiao Chen. Against the background of the flowing mist, she looked otherworldly and refined, but when she glanced at Xiao Chen, she showed undisguised contempt. This was not intentional, it was the most direct reaction of her heart, and she didn't need to hide her inner feelings in front of this waterfall where no outsiders were present. People should have self-knowledge and do their part to survive. Not everyone can compete for the Zulong and the companion dragon. Yan Qingcheng's voice was beautiful, but very indifferent. It is impossible for Xiao Chen to have a calm mind to be scorned by a peerless beauty. The murderous intent in the other party's words made him feel a little humiliated. If possible, he would like to raise his sword and step forward. However, he is not a reckless man, let alone an angry teenager. In this real world, many things have to be endured even if they cannot bear it. Now, it's not the time to act impulsively. When he first came to the longevity realm, he couldn't make enemies one after another. The most important thing was that he didn't have the strength to fight against 2 masters at the same time. I'm not interested in the ancestral dragon and the accompanying dragon. I just want to take a look at this island. If there is a ship leaving this island, I will go with it immediately. Chapter 35 5 Realms. Rand, a handsome blonde man, sneered lightly and said, I advise you to leave the deep forest as soon as possible, otherwise it is not worthwhile to lose your life because of curiosity. Thank you for the reminder. Xiao Chen turned and left. He is trying to control his emotions. Now is not the time to show off. He believes that one day, everything will change due to the change of strength. If he doesn't suppress his strength and shows his true strength, he can fight against 1 person, but he will definitely be defeated when facing 2 people at the same time. Strength is the last word. After staying away from that area, Xiao Chen gradually calmed down, and the anger in his heart had subsided. He knew that in the near future, he was unavoidable, and a battle was necessary. Xiao Chen found many paw prints in the nearby forest, which seemed to be left by dragon claws, and it should be a young dragon. Obviously, it was precisely because of this that Yan Qingcheng and Rand designated this place as a forbidden area. Soon, Xiao Chen joined the 3 skeletons, avoided the waterfall area, and started to move on. After turning over a low mountain, Xiao Chen smelled the smell of blood in the forest, and a faint blood mist lingered in the forest. Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons rushed over quickly. In the forest ahead, 5 or 6 corpses were lying in a pool of blood. The time of death was not very long. It seemed that a fierce battle had taken place here. Obviously, cultivators landed on the sealed dragon island one after another. After chasing forward for a certain distance, he found that there were shadows in the forest, and there were about a dozen people haunting nearby. Xiao Chen decided to stay away from this place and stay out of the matter. However, at this moment, Xiao Chen felt a strange wave, and looked around and saw a monk in white, stepping on the treetops, moving like flowing clouds and flowing water, very chic and elegant, like strolling in a garden, but very fast. It turned out to be a real monk. Apparently, Yi Jun also found Xiao Chen. He paused slightly on the treetop, and then fell lightly. Seeing the 3 skeletons, he seemed surprised, said, Undead creatures. Master, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon. You can just call me Yi Jun. We will never meet again in life. I have left a mark for my senior brother, and I plan to investigate the outer area of AA Long Island first. Monk Yijun turned his head, looked at the three skeletons, and then said to Xiao Chen, "Why are you walking with three undead creatures?" Although cultivators on the mainland no longer advocate absolutely killing them, it is still difficult for ordinary people and ordinary cultivators to feel good about undead creatures. Being with them may be for you, cause some trouble. Thank you, Brother Yijun, for reminding me. They saved my life. On this wild dragon island, there are few people, so I don't think it's a big trouble. That's right. Yijun nodded. During the conversation between the two, the three skeletons stood there blankly and stupidly like puppets. Only Xiao Chen, who knew them well, knew that these three undead creatures were really so good at pretending. Definitely creating an illusion on purpose. Xiao Chen pointed to several corpses not far away, and said, "Look, Senior Brother Yijun. I noticed. When I came here, I saw a few corpses in other places. Now there are no less than 20 cultivators who have landed on Dragon Island. This sealed ancient island is very vast, and there may be more people." Speaking of this, he turned his head and said to Xiao Chen, "Yan Qingcheng and Rand are also in this area. It seems that they have found a trace of a young dragon. Maybe it is really a companion dragon. You'd better stay away from them. Both of them are dangerous people. Get out of here." Oh, how strong are their cultivation bases? Xiao Chen still paid more attention to those two people. He felt that sooner or later he might fight those two. And it doesn't seem to be very long. I'm probably in the third or fourth heaven of the realm of transcendence. Shedding, Xiao Chen was a little puzzled. Yes, After a detailed explanation by Monk Yijun, Xiao Chen gradually understood. The longevity world is vast and full of races, which also lead to a variety of cultivation systems, such as curse masters who can borrow the power of gods, ancient and mysterious beast soul warriors, spirit warriors who are born with strong spiritual power and supernatural powers, and terrifying demigods born in some nearly extinct small races. If there is no unified standard for realm division, it is really difficult to clearly compare the combat power of different cultivation systems. As a result, a unified standard for the division of realms came out, but it directly skipped ordinary cultivators and divided 5 realms for the strong. The vast majority of cultivators are not qualified to use these 5 realms to measure. This is for the truly strong. Only by stepping into these 5 realms can we attack the legendary realm of immortality. These 5 realms are transformation, consciousness, space control, nirvana, and longevity. There are thousands of cultivators, and only when they step into the realm of transformation, among the 5 realms, can they find out the true meaning of cultivation. It is like a moat, blocking many cultivators. Metamorphosis, promoted to this realm, can be regarded as extraordinary and free from vulgarity, standing out from among the many cultivators, jumping over the heavenly moat, on the road of cultivation, and taking the most critical step on the road to immortality. Cultivators who have entered the realm of metamorphosis can communicate with the vitality of the world, condense their physique, and keep their own vitality endlessly. Recognition of Tibet, reaching this state, began to feel the treasure of spiritual consciousness, and the spiritual power gradually deepened, realizing that the body itself is a great treasure. With the double cultivation of spiritual consciousness and physical body, the potential of the body is gradually discovered and tapped, and various supernatural powers are initially revealed. Recognizing Tibet is a process of recognizing me, and a process of opening one's own treasure. Yukong, the curse master, was able to fly before reaching this level. After reaching this level of cultivation, whether it is an awakened person, or a practitioner of other systems such as warriors, they can also fly in the air. Of course, Yukong is not limited to the superficial meaning. The cultivator of Yukong realm means that he has been able to manipulate the natural power of heaven and earth for his own use, and all kinds of supernatural powers have further manifested. Those who have reached this level will be called demigods. Nirvana, reaching this state, will not be born or die, and the body and mind will be on the verge of extinction, wandering between life and death, and comprehend the profound meaning of life and death. If one fully comprehends the secret of life and death, one step further is the realm of longevity, but if one stays here for a long time, one may never recover, body and spirit will be destroyed. At the same time, the cultivators in this realm, their cultivation bases are sometimes strong and weak, and they are indeterminate. When they are strong, they can even exert the strength of immortality. For practitioners, the state of nirvana is both a great opportunity and a great danger. Those who can overcome the mystery of life and death will break out of their cocoons and turn into butterflies, and live forever in the world. And those who have no understanding will be wiped out, which is the most cruel. Longevity, to reach this state, is to truly break through life and death, and live forever in the world from then on. All kinds of esoteric teachings can be learned without a teacher, the magic power will flow by itself, and the supernatural power will manifest itself. The 5 realms of shedding mortals, knowing Tibet, controlling space, nirvana, and longevity clearly divide the strength of the world strong. Chapter 36 9 Heavens. The 5 realms of shedding mortals, recognizing possession, controlling space, nirvana, and longevity clearly divide the strength of the world strong. Only those who have entered these 5 realms can be called strong. The realm of transformation is a watershed, like a moat that keeps most people out. However, knowing Tibet, Yukong, nirvana, and longevity are a few insurmountable moats. Even if one enters the realm of transformation and comprehends the true meaning of cultivation, there are still 4 heavenly moats to stop him. Therefore, the strength gap between the 5 realms is huge, and very few people can defeat the strong in the previous realm by leapfrogging. Moreover, the strength gap between people in the same realm is quite large. For example, there is a huge difference between a junior in a certain realm and a peak in a certain realm. Therefore, people further subdivide each realm into 9 heavens. Therefore, the 5 realms of shedding mortals, knowing Tibet, controlling space, nirvana, and longevity have 9 levels for each realm. 5 levels of realm, each layer of 9 heavens. 95 Supreme Realm, climb to the top of Chengsheng Peak. It is the ultimate state that every cultivator dreams of. But, throughout the ages, how many people can achieve it? According to this method of division, Xiao Chen has already stepped into the realm of transformation. After understanding the 5 realms in detail, he was quite moved. Among the 5 realms, immortals rarely appear in the world, and for most people, they are just legendary existences. Cultivators in the nirvana realm are even more rare in the eyes of the world, and it is almost impossible to see them. Cultivators of the above 2 realms are almost not in the world. In a sense, the powerhouses in the Yukong realm are the truly terrifying characters. They are able to fly in the sky, control the natural forces of heaven and earth, possess all kinds of supernatural powers, and can almost sweep one side, so they are called demigods. Xiao Chen has seen the battle between the fallen angel and the holy dragon of light. They are the existence of this series. Of course, although they are as rare as a feather, the strong among them are not limited to this realm, so it is said that these ancient races are close branches of the gods. However, although the strong men in the demigod realm can be seen in the longevity realm, they seldom take action. After all, their strength is too strong, and they can almost sweep away all obstacles. The powerhouses in the demigod realm often intimidate one side, and the effect of deterrence is greater than actual combat. Relatively speaking, the masters of the state of knowledge of Tibet are closer to the world, and people have the opportunity to watch their battles, so the practitioners of the state of knowledge of Tibet also mean that they are strong fighters in the eyes of ordinary people. Among the 5 realms of the strong, in terms of the level of activity, there is no doubt that they are cultivators in the realm of metamorphosis, because some young heroes have also stepped into this field, and there are a group of young people among them. It is difficult not to be active. They are the closest to the world. The cultivation bases of Yan Qingcheng and Rand, in the 3rd or 4th level of the mortal realm, have already leapt over the first sky barrier. They are considered as rare young strongmen, and they do have the capital to be proud of. Longevity, what a cultivator's dream. Xiao Chen sighed. In our eyes, the realm of longevity is an unattainable peak, but in the eyes of those immortals, it may be a new starting point. Monk Yijun seemed to be quite emotional, and his expression seemed to be in a trance. Maybe they are pursuing the vast, the disappearing, ancient world of mythology. Xiao Chen didn't know much about the past of the longevity realm, so he didn't pay attention to it. He wondered the fate of those who came from the shattered void of the mortal world. Dugu seeks defeat, with a sword in his hand, looking down on the world, sweeping Liuhe. What state has he reached now? Chu Shui is the god, Jade is the bone. Where is the generation of Tianzhao fairy Shifazan now? Where is Zhang Tiandi's spiritual wisdom, the elf-like witch Hohu now? And many more. Monk Yijun had already left, and the 3 skeletons were no longer stupid. They moved their joints lazily, and when King Yama was excited, they even performed a 360-degree somersault. Xiao Chen originally wanted to leave here, but he keenly sensed that several cultivators were approaching here, and a trace of murderous intent was coming. Someone seemed to want to attack and kill him. It's all because of the accompanying dragon, and there are paw prints of young dragons nearby. The masters who entered this area wanted to compete for the legendary Dragon King, so they killed each other. Xiao Chen sneered, this kind of thing is not worth a shot, quickly retreated with the 3 skeletons, and led a few people towards the waterfall. Let Yan Qingcheng and Rand fight them. The primeval forest is lush, and it is very easy to get rid of if you know someone is following you. When he was almost at the destination, he flashed with the 3 skeletons and disappeared into the jungle. The paw prints of the young dragons in this area are more dense, and the 5 cultivators soon encountered Yan Qingcheng and Rand. Standing on a tall ancient tree in the distance, Xiao Chen could vaguely see an energized lightsaber sweeping across all obstacles in the forest. Afterwards, a huge savage dragon made of condensed energy jumped up, tossed and roared, and entangled with it. This seems to be a battle between curse masters. Xiao Chen doesn't really believe that the power of the magician comes from the gods. He believes that those ancient spells are the wonderful rhythm of heaven, which can be in harmony with the vitality between the heaven and the earth, so that they can be summoned to be used by the caster. Of course, this is just his wishful thinking. The battle was fierce, rumbling, thunder rang out, and several purple lightning bolts danced wildly in the woodland, and a large forest was smashed by the thunder and lightning. Afterwards, a large area of light blades, like a meteor shower, shuttled through the woodland under the waterfall, twisting the chaotic leaves of the mountain forest, and breaking the trees continuously. The light flashed, and most of a forest area was destroyed, and a few figures were looming. It turned out that 4 or 5 people were fighting Rand together, and Yan Qingcheng next to him hadn't made a move yet. The sound of the battle attracted several cultivators to stare at it. Not far away, there was a huge dragon's whistle, a deafening sound wave, the trembling forest trembled, fallen leaves were flying, and the sound wave was extremely terrifying. The frightened forest birds continued to soar into the sky, and many wild beasts ran wildly, causing chaos in this area. Some savage dragons were alarmed. It is very close to here, but only a mile away, in a valley. The fighting near the waterfall stopped immediately, and the 3 parties retreated in 3 directions, quickly disappearing in the mountains and forests. The wild dragon didn't rush over, only roared a few times, and then fell silent again. The dream didn't come. However, Xiao Chen changed his mind. If he left here, he would pass by that valley. Maybe he should go to see the situation of the wild dragon, maybe there will be surprises. The valley is not very wide, less than 1 square kilometer, and the forests in the valley are sparse, with only a dozen or so towering ancient trees. The rest of the valley has been trampled by wild dragons and is so dry that not a single blade of grass can grow. Chapter 37 Jasper Egg. A dark green savage dragon, exuding a fierce aura, walked slowly in the valley. It could be more than 20 meters long and more than 10 meters high. The body is as thick as the body of an elephant, and of course it is much larger than the body of an elephant. The neck is as long as a giant snake, with a length of 8 or 9 meters, and the dragon head is similar to that of a snake, except that there is an extra sharp horn. Its tail is also terrifying, shaped like the tail of a monitor lizard, and it is 10 meters long. The body of the elephant, the head of the snake, and the whole body are covered with dark green scales, and the cold light is shining, making it look sinister and ferocious. The evil spirit unique to the ferocious beast permeated the valley, making no birds or beasts dare to approach it. This is the legendary snake-elephant dragon. Although it can't compete with fierce dragons such as tyrannosaurs and 8-armed dragons, it can definitely compete with the bright holy dragon. However, on this sealed dragon island, it is impossible for the legendary supernatural powers to appear on it, and its beast nature is more than divinity. However, considering its tyrannical body and its tyrannical dragon power, even if it loses all kinds of magical powers, it will not have much impact, but it cannot attack from a distance, and it is still a demigod in close combat. I'm afraid that cultivators who haven't reached the demigod realm can't do anything about it. In the middle of the valley, there is a piece of woodland that has been destroyed for a long time. The broken trees were simply built into a dragon's nest. From a distance, there are several bright green dragon eggs in the dragon's nest. The dragon egg is crystal clear like green jade, blooming with gorgeous light, surrounded by green clouds, making the divine light shine bright there. Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons stood on the cliff on one side of the valley, and could clearly see everything in the valley. The snake-elephant dragon actually gave birth to several dragon eggs. It is not a matter of the number of eggs, but a matter of time. It is said that the ancestor dragon and the companion dragon will appear, and there is no guarantee that one of the snake-elephant dragon's descendants will not appear. Boom, boom, boom. There were tremors in the valley, and the snake-like dragon walked out of the valley with heavy steps. After a while, a wild elephant screamed in the forest. Not long after, the snake-like dragon returned with the corpse of a giant elephant, and lay down in the valley to enjoy the food. The scene was a bit bloody and unbearable to watch. There is a large pile of white bones not far from it, which should be the remains of beasts it once hunted and killed. The ferocious dragon was extremely cruel. In a short moment, it tore up a giant elephant. It seemed that it was still not satisfied, shaking its huge fierce body, and went out of the valley again. At the same time, Xiao Chen found that Yan Qingcheng, Rand, and 7 or 8 other cultivators were all attracted by the huge dragon's roar, and they were watching in the forest outside the valley, as if they wanted to determine whether there were young dragons in this valley. Xiao Chen communicated with the 3 skeletons, of course, mainly because he kept moving his mouth and gestures with his hands, he couldn't hear the voices of the 3 skeletons. Come down from this cliff, and everyone will bring back a dragon egg. Kaba kaba, the 3 skeletons clapped their jaws in puzzlement. It's those crystal clear things that radiate divine light. Xiao Chen pointed to the dragon eggs in the dragon's nest. The 3 skeletons were extremely reluctant to ask them to steal the dragon's eggs. They seemed to know that the snake-like dragon was not easy to mess with, but they were persuaded by Xiao Chen in the end, and they dexterously climbed down from the cliff. Xiao Chen watched Taniguchi nervously, watching for the 3 skeletons. The last time the 3 skeletons forced him to dig up the sacred seedlings, this time it was even. Qin Guangwang and their speed were very fast, leaving 3 white lights in the valley, and rushed to the vicinity of the dragon's nest in an instant. The 3 skeletons did not hesitate, each picked up a jasper dragon egg the size of a millstone, and fled like a thief. Roar! The snake-like dragon roared from the forest in the distance, and it seemed to have killed its prey. Xiao Chen watched nervously on the cliff. The Samsara King and the other 3 skeletons increased their speed to the limit like burning their butts. Fortunately, the valley was less than 1 square kilometer and it was not very wide. 3 white lights rushed down the cliff. The 3 skeletons were extremely powerful, dragging a huge dragon egg with one hand, and quickly climbed up. When they rushed up the cliff, there was a booming sound from the valley entrance, and the ground trembled slightly. The 3 skeletons seemed to have lingering fears, and King Qin Guang patted his chest in a very humane way. It didn't look like a skeleton, but it was clearly a person with rich emotions. Although the size of the snake-elephant dragon and the 8-armed evil dragon is quite different, their eggs are about the same size, as big as a millstone. The brilliant brilliance illuminates the vegetation above the cliff, and the eggshells are crystal clear and bright like emeralds. Xiao Chen asked the 3 skeletons to move the dragon eggs into the forest behind, so as to avoid being seen by the snake-elephant dragon below. This was really an unexpected surprise. Having torn most of the giant tiger's food, the snake-like dragon seemed to sense something unusual. It walked towards the dragon's nest with great vigilance. Suddenly, a heaven-shattering roar erupted from the valley, and the terrifying roar of the dragon pierced through the sky. Of the 5 jasper dragon eggs, there were only 2 left. The snake-elephant dragon was completely berserk. It ran around the valley quickly, shaking the valley. After an extremely angry roar, it rushed out of the valley like crazy. There was a complete chaos outside the valley. The snake-like dragon had rushed into the primitive dense forest. Wherever it passed, the forest fell and the trees were broken, the leaves were flying, and the beasts ran away. The snake-elephant dragon is rarely so violent. It is the overlord of this area. All birds and beasts flee in panic, including many ferocious beasts. The few cultivators who were looking for companion dragons nearby and peeping into the valley had the urge to scold their mothers. How could this be? Who provoked the snake-elephant dragon? Could it be that there was really a young dragon king in the valley? Someone entered the valley to rob the little dragon king, and was discovered by this fierce dragon. Now, they can't be allowed to think too much, so they can only run away desperately. They wish they could have wings. This snake-like dragon is too terrifying, sweeping away all obstacles. It is simply a giant killing weapon. Yan Qingcheng and Rand were also impacted. At this moment, it was difficult for the 2 of them to remain calm. In addition to the raging dragon, there were many other frightened wild beasts in this area, making their situation very dangerous. The 2 also joined the army of wild beasts fleeing. Chapter 38 The Power of the Snake Elephant. Chaos can only be used to describe the scene in front of me. The roar of the beasts shook the sky, the mountains and forests trembled, the fallen leaves were flying, and the beasts ran away. If Yan Qingcheng and the others knew that the culprit was Xiao Chen, they would definitely swear to tear him into pieces, and now everyone is in a dangerous situation and embarrassment. The mountain forest on the opposite side was in chaos, but the primitive old forest behind the valley was still relatively calm. Xiao Chen let the 3 skeletons escape while he himself stayed behind. King Yan Luo, King Qin Guang, and King Reincarnation each fled with a dragon egg in their arms, and quickly headed towards the death swamp. Seeing that there were no abnormalities around, Xiao Chen also retreated quickly. He no longer paid attention to whether the snake-elephant dragon could kill Yan Qingcheng and others. The most important thing was to leave this chaotic forest. After all, he was the culprit. Today is definitely an extremely angry day for Yan Qingcheng and Rand, but for Xiao Chen at this moment, it is really refreshing and incomparably carefree. This can be regarded as an indirect response to Yan Qingcheng and Rand. When he returned to the Death Swamp, the sunset was lingering in the western sky, and the large fire clouds rendered the sky red, and it was getting late. The reason why he chose the Death Swamp as a temporary residence was mainly because there was an undead king who could not move easily here, which could deter wild beasts from approaching, and the three skeletons were more familiar with this place. In case of danger, here is a very good buffer. The three skeletons had already returned, and the three crystal-clear jasper eggs, which were still in the mud, were actually sitting on them as mazars. They really had a personality. Contrary to Xiao Chen's expectations, the giant tree where the sacred seedlings took root did not wither and die, but the branches and leaves became greener and greener, as if there was a faint green light flickering, and the surrounding area was full of aura, and the death swamp within a short distance became full of vitality. Xiao Chen instantly understood that the little holy tree is not terrible, it does not simply absorb the life energy of the giant trees, but benefits from them together. With its existence, the giant trees can quickly absorb the vitality of the world, many times faster than before. Last time, the reason why the ancient tree died was probably because of him and the three skeletons. The four of them absorbed too much energy, and the demand exceeded the supply, which caused the ancient tree to decline. The Samsara King and the others sat on the dragon egg, with the light of the soul beating in their eyes, and they were looking eagerly at the small tree shrouded in colorful rays of light. Xiao Chen spent a lot of energy trying to persuade them to take turns to go forward, so that they could not exhaust the water. The three dragon eggs are shimmering with green clouds, this is a huge harvest. The sunset glow disappeared, and Xiao Chen and the three skeletons came to the forest area on the edge of the swamp. King Qin Guang didn't care about them facing the miasma of corpses, but Xiao Chen would definitely not be able to bear it for a long time. The shrouded holy tree and the bright green dragon eggs complement each other, making the forest full of aura, and the brilliance is flowing like water waves. The three skeletons can absorb the power of the spar and the pure energy flowing from the small holy tree, but they cannot absorb the essence of the dragon egg, because the huge essence contained in the dragon egg needs to be further refined before it can be transformed into the pure energy they can absorb. King Yama and the others made great contributions. Xiao Chen asked them to stagger the time period to absorb the energy of the small holy tree, so that the sacred seedlings would have enough energy to absorb and refine the essence of heaven and earth. He hoped that the small holy tree could also grow further. In addition, Xiao Chen gave all the dozen or so high-quality spars in his collection to the three skeletons, which made the three undead creatures do somersaults in succession excitedly. The longer they get along, the more Xiao Chen finds out that the three of them are not dead at all, but very active. At night, the forest was surrounded by auspicious light. Xiao Chen broke open a dragon egg, and a majestic life essence exploded in an instant, turning into a miniature snake-like dragon. Having had such an experience, this time it is no longer as painful as the last time. While refining the dragon Mingyuan with all its strength, it guides the majestic vitality to circulate in the body. A dragon egg doesn't seem too big, but the life essence contained in it is extremely huge. After all, it will grow into a fierce dragon in the future. The endless green divine light wrapped Xiao Chen inside, as if the surging divine flames were beating, and the fluctuation of life was very violent. Looking at it from a distance, it looks like a ball of divine fire is burning. The three skeletons looked at Xiao Chen in amazement, and suddenly saw a snake-like dragon with green divine light, coiled around Xiao Chen's body with its teeth and claws, viciously biting the circulating life energy. However, with the passage of time, the light and shadow of the snake-like dragon gradually faded away, while Xiao Chen's skin shone with bursts of crystal-clear light, and the momentum emitted by the whole person seemed to be much stronger. It wasn't until midnight that the surging divine flames dancing outside Xiao Chen's body all converged into his body, and his eyes became sharper. As expected, the huge dragon's essence did not merge into the true essence he cultivated, but all gathered into the central point, forming a bright spot of light, and another acupuncture point will be deified. Zongting point is located on the chest of the human body, at the lowest end of the central axis of the sternum. At this moment, in the atrium acupoint, there is a speck of light shining brightly, but it is not yet completely deified. The snake-elephant dragon can't fight against the 8-armed evil dragon, and the life essence contained in the dragon eggs it produces can't be compared with the evil dragon eggs, and it is obvious that the level of the evil dragon can be felt. But fortunately there are still 2 dragon eggs. Xiao Chen is sure that Zongting acupoint can be completely deified today. Today, after the huge dragon essence condensed into the acupuncture point, he felt a little different from before. It seemed that his life energy was vaguely stronger, and he felt that his life energy was indescribably abundant. Without thinking too much, Xiao Chen broke open the second dragon egg, and the gorgeous light of life lingered in the forest again, and a blazing divine flame wrapped Xiao Chen inside. The three skeletons were no longer curious, and began to concentrate on absorbing the energy of the spar. A dozen top-quality crystals were crushed by the light of the soul, turning into streaks of colored light, which slowly merged into the bones of the whole body, and then entered the light of the soul. Their light of the soul was slowly growing, and the bones gradually became more shiny. Chapter 39. Improving your cultivation. In the early morning, the morning glow shines brightly, and the dewdrops on the leaves and flowers shine crystal clear, like pearls rolling, and the fresh air is blown by the wind. Xiao Chen has already woken up and completely refined the huge dragon essence contained in the second snake-elephant dragon egg, and the atrium point at the end of the central axis of the chest has finally been completely deified. The light spot is perfectly condensed with the acupoints. Compared with other acupoints, it is like a bright light in the dark night. Two snake-like dragon eggs created the third deified acupoint. At this moment, Xiao Chen finally clearly felt that, unlike in the past, his life essence seemed to be much stronger. The Shangqiu point on the left foot, the Shangqiu point on the right foot, and the Zongting point on the chest, the three acupoints seem to be connected together by traces of vitality. Under internal inspection, it is impossible to see the traces of flowing life energy, but it can be vaguely felt. Xiao Chen was overjoyed for a while. Xiao Chen didn't know what would be extraordinary in the future, but now his life essence has indeed become stronger, and the benefits are huge. It is said that a cat has 9 lives. That is because its life energy is strong enough compared to its body, so many times even if its body is injured, it can survive in the end. Xiao Chen didn't expect to become an immortal cat with 9 lives, but if he was injured again, the wounded body would be nourished by abundant life energy, and the speed of recovery would definitely be much faster. The moment he stood up, Xiao Chen felt that his body seemed to be much lighter and stronger, and he moved his muscles and bones lightly. He left a few afterimages in the forest, and swung a few brilliant light blades with both hands. The giant trees were cut off in succession as he passed, and he fell down in the forest with the sound of rumbling, and the fallen leaves were flying. The cultivation base has improved a lot. It took Xiao Chen a long time to calm down. The apotheosis of the acupoints seems to initially show extraordinary. In the past, he could only be sure that his cultivation base was in the state of transformation, and it was difficult for him to confirm whether he was in the second heaven or the third heaven. But now, he is sure that he has reached the third heaven, or the fourth heaven. Coupled with the exuberant life essence, he believes that he can face the masters who have transformed into the fourth heaven, and even stronger opponents. Xiao Chen is very much looking forward to the day when the 365 positive points will be completely deified. The towering ancient trees in the forest were cut down by the bright light blade he swung, but the 3 skeletons did not respond to such a big commotion. King Qin Guang, King Yama, and King Reincarnation surrounded the remaining dragon egg, seeming to be watching something nervously. After waking up, Xiao Chen has been sensing the changes in himself, ignoring the surroundings, not paying attention to the 3 skeletons, and now he obviously felt something abnormal. He walked over quickly, and was dumbfounded when he saw the result. The palm-high colorful sacred tree is rooted in the jasper-like dragon egg, and the sacred light is flowing like water waves. The trunk of the small tree is more vigorous, and the large black jade-like leaves are shining with black light, while the smaller crystal-clear white jade leaves seem to have grown a lot. Miraculous holy tree. It can actually absorb the essence of dragon eggs and refine the huge essence of dragon. The glistening green eggshell gradually dimmed, and then began to crack slowly, and finally shattered completely with a poof. There was no trace of essence fluctuations inside, and there was only a yellowish liquid, which flowed all over the floor. Xiao Chen held the sacred seedling in his hands. This is really a magical treasure. He didn't feel sorry for that dragon egg at all. You put him on the dragon egg. The 3 skeletons shook their heads together. I'm not blaming you, on the contrary, you did a good job. King Qin Guang and the others still shook their heads, their jaws clicked, and the bone claws kept making gestures. It took a lot of effort before Xiao Chen understood what they were talking about. The little holy tree was actually rooted on the dragon egg by himself. How can this be? How can it move by itself? However, it is impossible for the 3 skeletons to lie. It seems that the little holy tree itself fell on the dragon egg from the giant tree next to it. Things are a little weird. Xiao Chen is a little confused. Vaguely, Xiao Chen felt reborn. The essence of cultivation is to constantly break the shackles of the human body and realize continuous transformation and sublimation of the self. He clearly felt that his physique was slowly changing. And after the three skeletons absorbed more than a dozen high-quality crystals and used the small holy tree to practice overnight, they seemed to be different from the past. The light of the soul in the skulls became brighter, and the bones became more lustrous and smoother. Xiao Chen decided that no matter how many crystals he hunted in the future, he would give them to the three skeletons as soon as possible, so that they could continuously transform and evolve towards a stronger realm. And he wants to deify the acupoints, and the huge amount of essence he needs cannot be satisfied by ordinary spar, unless it is a dragon crystal, otherwise it will be a drop in the bucket, and it will not be satisfied at all. After the little holy tree absorbed the essence of the snake elephant dragon's egg, it was surrounded by colorful rays of light and became even more miraculous. I am afraid that the white jade leaf will be as big as the black jade leaf in a short time. After placing the sacred seedlings deep in the swamp, and burying the jasper-like broken snake elephant dragon eggshell, Xiao Chen and the three skeletons started on the road again. He must solve the problem between Zhao Liner and Ji Yuluo as soon as possible. When he set off, he suddenly thought of the group of mysterious giant apes. When Zhao Liner was rescued by the little unicorn, the four-armed blood-colored giant ape led the group of apes to chase him down. Maybe he could get important clues from them. It didn't take long for Xiao Chen and the three skeletons to appear near the stone forest where the giant ape lived. It was very quiet here, unlike other areas where there were constant roars of beasts. The flowers and plants around the stone forest were fragrant, and the singing of birds was melodious. There were also many vines entangled in the stone forest. Roar! There was a roar, and an old ape more than 3 meters high flashed out from the stone forest, roaring at Xiao Chen and the others continuously, showing deep hostility. This group of giant apes had friendship with Xiao Chen for a few days before, but because of the death of a giant ape, the relationship between the two parties gradually cooled down. Xiao Chen knew that this group of giant apes had been psychic, and patiently gestured and explained, hoping that it could provide Zhao Liner with clues. The low cry of the young ape came from the stone forest, and several young apes jumped out, followed by an old ape. It seems that the adult great apes have all gone out, and only 2 old apes are left to take care of a few young apes and guard the habitat. It can be seen that the 2 old apes are a little nervous. Through repeated gestures and repeated explanations, the old ape seemed to understand Xiao Chen's meaning to some extent, and one of the old apes flew away, leaping into the depths of the primitive dense forest, looking for other giant apes. Half an hour later, there were more than a dozen long howls in the distance, and the bloody demon ape led more than a dozen giant apes to appear, and when they came close, they kept roaring around Xiao Chen, seeming to be full of hostility. Xiao Chen knew that he would never come here again next time. The little friendship from before was completely gone. Through repeated explanations, continuous gestures, and even drew portraits of Zhao Liner and little Tianma on the ground, the scarlet demon ape was a psychic beast after all, so he finally understood. It roared at the apes a few times, and then it took Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons, and leapt away in a certain direction of the primitive forest. Instead of heading deep into the island, they headed west in parallel along the way. It has to be said that the scarlet demon ape was born with extraordinary talents and was extremely athletic. It was impossible for Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons to hop on the branches and leaves for a long time like it did, but they were able to follow them in the forest at a leisurely pace, so as not to be thrown away without a trace. After climbing several mountains in a row, the blood-colored giant ape stopped. The ape paw pointed at a piece of undulating primitive forest in front of it, let out a low growl, and stopped moving forward. There seemed to be danger ahead, which made it deeply jealous. Chapter 40 No need to endure anymore. Xiao Chen frowned. Judging from the performance of the scarlet demon ape, it seemed that things were not easy to handle. Even such psychic beasts stopped here, obviously the mountains were not a good place. Roar! The scarlet demon ape let out a low growl, then jumped away without looking back, and disappeared into the depths of the dense forest in the blink of an eye. Xiao Chen thought for a while, decided to move on, and started on the road again with the 3 skeletons. After turning over the 2 mountains, there were bursts of low-pitched animal roars ahead. Although the sound was not loud, it gave off an extremely dangerous sense of oppression. Passing through a dense bush, Xiao Chen and the 3 skeletons approached the place where the beast roared, and found several corpses one after another along the way. They were all strange cultivators, whose bodies had been torn apart by life and death. It can be clearly seen that they have not died for a long time, and there is still blood mist floating in the forest, and the smell of blood is very pungent. Obviously, the number of people entering Long Island is increasing, and most of these people encountered fierce beasts in this area. It's just that when Xiao Chen approached the source of the deep beast roar, he overturned the conjecture just now. Those cultivators who died did not die at the mouth of the beast. Ahead, tragedies were still happening, and he clearly saw the truth. A tall specter was slaughtering in the forest. The giant claws waved, blood burst out, and the body of a cultivator was split open with bare hands. The liver and other organs flowed all over the place, and blood splattered everywhere. The scene was extremely cruel. The phantom is tall and majestic, more than 3 meters high, with a pair of erect wolf ears, and a long and powerful tiger tail. It turned out to be the person Xiao Chen had seen before, the barbarian youth and strong Kaio. Although he has a human body and appearance, he looks like a ferocious human beast at this moment, cold and cruel, with 2 terrifying green lights shooting out of his eyes, and his breath is like a wild beast. Aha! Hey! The screams came again, and Kaio turned around violently. The thick, long and powerful tiger tail, like an extremely sharp magic knife, emitted a terrifying and strange light, and even chopped off the body of the last cultivator beside him from the waist and abdomen. Roar! Kaio uttered the last deep beast roar. The terrifying green light in his eyes gradually disappeared, and the ferocious animal nature slowly disappeared. Needless to say, the terrified barbarian young strong man has a strong combat power, and his brutal temperament is a bit terrifying. It is not an exaggeration to call him a humanoid beast. Jared, a young strong man of the forest tribe who was traveling with him, was standing not far away, watching all this calmly just now. Come out. Kao was as sharp as a wild beast, and turned his head to look in Xiao Chen's direction in an instant. At the same time, Xiao Chen and the vegetation behind the 3 skeletons danced wildly, and many vines grew wildly, blocking their way, which was obviously done by Arid, who can control the growth of vegetation. It's you. When Kaio saw Xiao Chen walking out, his whole body exuded a dangerous beast aura, and said, "Are you following us?" No, don't get me wrong. Yulad focused his eyes on the 3 skeletons. Although his body was thin, his momentum was not weak. He said in a deep voice, "It's actually an undead creature, hey." Kaio's eyes flickered fiercely, and he strode forward, giving people a strong sense of oppression. And Yulad also walked over unhurriedly, with a soft voice, but with a heavy killing intent. He said, "The birds should not fly in front of the dragon, or they will only go to self-destruction." His body was emitting a little green light, and the green vegetation in front of him automatically separated, paving a green passage for him. Although his body is very thin, but at the moment his aura is by no means inferior to that of Kaio, exuding a murderous intent. Obviously, comparing Xiao Chen to a bird and himself to a giant dragon is a kind of contempt based on self-confidence and a kind of humiliation. Xiao Chen was angry, but he clenched his fist 3 times and let go of it 3 times. In the end, he turned around and left without saying anything. He has already made such a concession. If Arid and Kaio are in the way, then he will not hesitate to fight. With the 3 skeletons bypassing the barrier of the vines, they gradually disappeared into the forest. Kaio looked at Xiao Chen's back, his eyes were still shining like a beast, and said, "Is he really weak?" Yulad stared at the forest, smiled lightly and said, "He is suppressing his own power, I sensed it just now. His cultivation base is not too weak, but, anyone who enters Dragon Island is either our ally or competitor. I wanted to find a reason to get rid of the potential instability, but he tolerated it. Let him go this time. I have to give Monk Yijun face. Really, I don't have so many scruples, let me get rid of him." Kaio was strong, and after saying this, he left an afterimage on the spot. The tall body jumped up, and the giant hands grabbed the stretched branches of the trees, like a vigorous ape, and disappeared among the ancient trees in the blink of an eye. Xiao Chen was only more than 100 meters away, and suddenly felt as if a ferocious beast was approaching quickly. Just when he turned around, he found that the crown of a giant tree behind him snapped off with a boom, and a tall figure swept down, causing the branches below to shatter in an instant. Kaio is like a wild beast, sweeping away all obstacles. All the branches of trees, etc., were smashed by his body emitting a faint yellow light. He rushed towards Xiao Chen like a demon ape. He is simply a humanoid beast. Unavoidable, then fight to the death. This is Xiao Chen's bottom line and principle. He had already made some enemies on this island, and he wanted to avoid any more, but now it seemed that this was his wishful thinking. Everyone on Long Island will fight each other for the ancestral dragon and half-life dragon king, even if they want to compromise. On Long Island, no one can avoid it, and everyone will face a chaotic killing. Xiao Chen tried his best to avoid further enmity before, but it doesn't mean he is timid. On the contrary, he is a decisive person. Since the other party is so persecuted and has exceeded the bottom line in his heart, what else can he say? The only way to stop killing is to kill.